Chapter 141. White Socks Shocking the Sky. Witness my dual masters of sword and saber skills. Check their legs. This abrupt voice broke the train of thought of both the tall one and Shorty. In such a dire situation with White Socks dying horribly, they had not experienced anything like this since they had joined the divine sect. Thus their minds were far from calm. So when the stunning young man suddenly appeared before them wanting to examine their legs, both of them were taken aback. Under normal circumstances, they would have definitely toyed with such a handsome man, perhaps really showing him their legs, then gouging out his eyes and ravaging him, but they were in no mood for such antics now. But in the next moment, as the tall one yanked her, Shorty immediately backed away with her sister. It was only then that Shorty noticed something was off. The man seemed harmless and exceedingly handsome, but he exuded a scent of blood. At this time, their subordinates had already rushed over in large numbers, the leader wearing a tense expression, seemingly with something to report to them yet somewhat hesitant to speak. One must know that from top to bottom, the White Sox sect was always confident, and only a truly exceptional master could cause such abnormal behavior in them. This handsome man before them was such a master. Linking together the news they just received and the intelligence they had previously gathered, Shorty blurted out, "Old Demon Duan." Upon hearing this, Duan Yun's expression darkened, and he said, "No need to look. You two are evil heretics." Seeing the situation turn, the tall one was startled and shouted, "Charge!" Almost simultaneously, the tall one and Shorty made their moves. One used finger technique, and the other used toe skills the famed men can't see. Having already taken down many White Sox, Duan Yun had also seen this move many times, to the point where he had grown weary of it. It seemed that no matter which White Sox faced him, they all resorted to this same move. This move was strange and tricky, extremely refined, and truly difficult for ordinary people to withstand, but it was utterly useless against him. But this time the situation had changed. The same moves, when performed by these two women, one tall and the other short, had completely different effects. Both possessed the strength of the Tongyu realm, and one assaulted the upper body with their feet, while the other attacked the lower body with their hands. Interweaving like a pair of butterflies in flight, they were remarkably consummate. Before they had even approached, the force of their fingers and toes already rushed towards him, and especially the one using her feet, carried a strong, pungent scent. Duan Yun could no longer casually break through the moves of these two. His true chi surged throughout his body as the breaking body sword energy exploded forth. Almost at the same time, the death energy from his waistband blended with the breaking body sword energy. The sword chi turned into an ominous black, colliding with the two men can't see. Without a massive explosion, since both forces were devious and gloomy by nature, the leaking energy rippled out like ripples on water, knocking over the White Sox sect members that were rushing over. Duan Yun stepped back twice and realized that these two's moves had actually influenced his inner energy. Shorty and the tall one, however, retreated 5 steps, their attacking hands and feet pierced by breaking body sword energy, with black death energy emanating from their wounds. Both sides were startled by the strength of their opponent. "White Sox shocking heaven!" the tall one suddenly shouted. Almost simultaneously, countless white stockings flew into the sky. The normally soft garb turned arrow-like, creating an unbroken stream of White Sox rain, covering the sky. Damn! Duan Yun was startled upon seeing this spectacle. The next moment, over a dozen pairs of socks, with whistling strength, smashed towards him. Embrace Sparrow Tail. The Jade Sword Immortal's Dharma image appeared behind him, numerous jade arms shooting out jade sword finger sword energy. Bang, bang, bang! The arrow-like White Sox were blasted into fluff, but at that moment, the sky was already filled with White Sox, to the extent that Duan Yun could barely see the daylight. "Old Demon Duan, you're honored to witness our divine sect's White Sox shocking heaven." The last time White Sox shocking heaven unfolded was during a confrontation with the sect hierarch of the Sun and Moon Divine Sect. The White Sox sect was known for triumphing the strong with the weak. A group of ordinary White Sox could take down renowned masters of the Tongyu realm. And White Sox shocking heaven, is one of the three most exquisite array techniques of the White Sox sect, possessing the might to shock the heavens. It could only be activated by two Tongyu realm powerhouses as the central pivot, coupled with 300 elite White Sox sect members. For so long, the White Sox sect had been extremely formidable, their most troublesome adversaries being the native divinity country's Sun and Moon divine sect. Even the top-notch experts of the once pride of the Western divine country's first divine sect fell one after another to this array. White Sox fluttering, obscuring the sun and the sky. Duan Yun's expression grew solemn. This White Sox sect truly is bizarre and malicious. Not to mention their White Sox shocking heaven array makes the sun and moon dull, air congeal, and that sour and refreshing scent locked within could suffocate people to death. Welcome the sect hierarch's protector, heaven-shocking demon-slaying. At this moment, the members of the White Sox sect, continuously kicking out the White Sox, shouted loudly. And now, shorty and tall, the two protectors, had stepped on their socks, soaring above Duan Yun. Each time their foot hit a sock, it made a clang like metal striking stone. These sounds joined together, forming a rather magnificent tune. You guys have BGM too? Seeing this, Duan Yun drew his golden sword. Water Moon sword energy roared out, chopping towards the flying White Sox. With a boom, a gap was sliced into the White Sox, but in an instant, new White Sox filled it up again. In a moment, the entire White Sox array seemed like a living entity, its chi interconnected. Shocking! The heavens! Above the White Sox shocking heaven array, as ripples emanated from under the two protectors' feet, they stomped on the White Sox, and a piercing sonic boom suddenly erupted. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! The White Sox in the sky turned into flying threads, attacking Duan Yun like countless flying swords. Duan Yun and Little Yu simultaneously looked up, raising their hands. Jade sword finger sword energy shot out like a sudden downpour. Bop, 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 bop. Jade sword finger sword energy collided with the White Sox, sparking flames. Both sides were surprisingly evenly matched. You must know that the White Sox are but soft silk fabrics. Yet now they were able to clash evenly with the Jade sword finger sword energy that could pierce through a person's skull. Even more bizarre, those White Sox that were knocked away merged back into the White Sox array, where new White Sox kept raining down as if they were endless. Duan Yun increased his force. A series of White Sox were knocked out of the array. Two bloodthirsty bystanders just saw several white silk stockings fall from the sky, completely unable to react, their mouths agape in shock. The next moment, two socks smashed into their mouths, shattering teeth and tongues together, sending them tumbling head over heels. It must be said, the array of the White Sox sect is truly astonishing. Just talking about the purity and robustness of true chi, Duan Yun, infused with endless moonlight, is stronger than the two protectors, yet this White Sox array managed to connect the chi of both protectors and the White Sox sect members as one. This meant that in a head-on confrontation, the opposing side channeled all their strength into two people, making Duan Yun face off against the force of hundreds at once. Old Demon Duan, today is the day you die. Duan Yun continued to fire off his jade sword finger, while his eyes were starting to moisten. It's the stench. The falling White Sox, on colliding with the sword chi, not only sparked fire but also emitted an intense stench. He finally understood why this group of White Sox sect liked to wear tight silk undergarments. It was for times like this, to smother people with the scent, wasn't it? Dharma image Xiao Yu, dressed in black silk, also showed a look of disgust at the pile of White Sox. With a roar, Duan Yun exerted an impulsive elbow sword strike, shattering the pressing White Sox, his whole body already leaping into the air. If this White Sox array considers itself the heavens, then he'll puncture a hole through the heavens. The sour smell is too overwhelming. Such treatment of a young hero is simply unforgivable. Come out. Breaking body sword chi column. Rumbling and roaring, the breaking body sword chi, fused with Little Yu's netherworld death energy, turned into a black sword column and thrust towards the White Sox array. This was a sword column that could widen a river. White Sox shocking the sky. You presume to shock the heavens. 7 layers. Spring rain. Duan Yun held a black sword energy column with his left hand thrusting upwards. Right hand wielding the demon blade, gentle knife, now a spinning waterfall of saber rain. Let you witness the young hero's righteous mastery of dual masters of sword and saber. Chapter 142. On this day, old demon Duan succumbed to demonization, filling the world with heroic spirit. Boom! A roaring black sword pillar collided with the White Sox shocking heaven array. Dozens of White Sox sect members were shocked on the spot, their orifices bleeding, the subsequent White Sox flying in. They no longer had the strength to catch them, letting the White Sox smash deep sock prints on their faces and fall to the ground. A hole was forcibly poked in this White Sox shocking heaven array, and both the tall one and Protector Shorty had their feet numbed. Sister, it's so hot. Shorty jumped on one foot. At this moment, their rhythm of stepping on the White Sox was disrupted. Press down. Don't let him get out. The tall one, enduring the unbearable tingling and burning sensation in her feet, continued to press down. More pronounced ripples of force emanated from under their feet. Thus, the white knitted socks in the air, as if going mad, smashed down towards Duan Yun. At the same time, the flying White Sox gathered towards the sword pillar to close the gap. If the previously falling White Sox were like arrows, now they were more like sharp bricks, heavy and ruthless. The horrifying sour smell assailed like a torrential rain. Duan Yun felt as if he was swimming in a soup of snail rice noodles and stinky tofu. This was truly a test of a hero's will. Suddenly, a sound like wind chimes but from a saber rang out. The horrifying smell and the brick-like socks were swept flying out. Boom! A 7-layer swirling sword chi collided with the White Sox array, bringing up a terrifying ripple-like air wave. The brick-like socks could no longer return to the array formation, scattering everywhere. Bang! A spray of blood shot into the sky. A man's head was embedded with a white knitted sock, appearing as though his head was split into two by the stocking. While bleeding, he excitedly said, "To be smashed to death by such socks, to die is worth it." Saying so, he fell and did not get up. Meanwhile, more people screamed and fled for their lives. This Lishan city was originally well controlled by the White Sox sect, and just as Duan Yun and the White Sox sect had reached this point, the city's people didn't dare to run wildly. But as more and more White Sox died in the backlash of the array, the White Sox could no longer control the city, and people fled in panic. The terrifying white stockings, like blocks wrapping aggressive true chi, smashed through rooftops, shattered walls, and crushed and killed people. The 7-layer spring rain along with the death energy body-breaking sword pillar. The White Sox shocking heaven array was showing signs of collapse, but it was still persistently holding on. They must persist, because even the always victorious and extremely confident White Sox and their protectors were terribly frightened. If they didn't persist and let the demon out, what kind of horrifying outcome would that be? For a moment, Duan Yun, situated within the array, was more terrifying than a primordial beast that could devour people. The White Sox, still bleeding from all orifices, maintained the array with a look that appeared to others as a self-sacrificing effort to prevent a human catastrophe. Ah! Ah! A soul-corroding and intense scream emitted from the two protectors. A bright yellow liquid burst from their pants, splashing out with fountain-like force, lifting them into midair, unable to land. Wind flow continuous bullet. This was not a new move created by Duan Yun, but a combination of flirtatious finger strength and toe strength fired in the shortest time and at the fastest frequency, through the white stockings pressed by the two protectors' feet, smashing onto them. The tall one and Shorty, never feeling such an impact before, gradually became glazed over. Duan Yun's true chi inside his body spun wildly, aiming to unify again with Little Yu, seizing this opportunity to deliver a powerful blow. At this time, only to hear a shout, heroic venerate inside. Sisters, charge! A group of battle-worn women, clothes shredded and bleeding, rushed forward recklessly. The White Sox shocking the sky array had not yet collapsed, and the strong chi was still connected. Even masters of Tongyu realm charging recklessly could have their bones shattered, not dead then crippled. But these women, square-faced, round-faced, gauzy-faced, horse-faced, holding swords rushed forward, their Dharma images flickering behind them, daring like moths to a flame, fearless. This was a very magical scene, utterly thrilling in the eyes of the White Sox, especially those Dharma images with multiple arms stretching out, if not the old demon in the array. Then who? Bang! 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 Suddenly, young hero Duan and the Jade Girls, who believe in him, inside and outside coordinated. The until now undefeated White Sox shocking heaven array disintegrated in an instant. Yes, Duan Yun hadn't even deployed his subsequent move yet. The stinking arrangement that made people dizzy was broken. The terrifying odor wrapped in the array was overturned, turning into a roaring air wave. Hence half of the city's people were vomiting and rolling on the ground, teary and snotty. It's evident how stalwart young hero Duan was amidst it all. Once the array was broken, the White Sox crumbled like a falling mountain, with nearly all dead or injured. The Jade Girls too suffered heavy losses. From over 100 initially, now fewer than 20 remained. But even more White Sox perished, with one Jade Girl equating to the loss of at least 7 or 8 White Sox. Primarily because upon hearing that heroic Venerate was in trouble, they were virtually unstoppable. At this moment, the remaining Jade Girls knelt on the ground, almost fainting from excitement. They saw the living heroic Venerate. Heroic Venerate is unharmed, brilliant and valiant. Heroic Venerate. Lady Venerate. A few still rational Jade Girls addressed Duan Yun and Xiao Yu standing behind him with respect. Dharma image Xiao Yu nodded slightly, seemingly pleased with their address. Duan Yun was somewhat confused about the reinforcement situation, but recalled the rumors previously spread by storytellers. Could it be true? At that moment, the Jade Girls let out a cry of surprise. Sister! Chubby-faced Zhao Deli lay in a pool of blood, her face contorted and swollen, barely leaving a slit for eyes. Upon seeing Yun, she actually smiled. Although Duan Yun did not know the full story, he understood that, at least now, they shared the same enemy. He hurried over to support her, wanting to find a way to save her, but it was too late. She was practically on her last breath. Or to say, surviving until now with her multiple mortal wounds was nothing short of a miracle. Duan Yun asked, "Do you have any last wishes?" Zhao Deli, once Zhao Defa, now grievously struggled to say, "Heroic Venerate, I really loved learning your heroic righteousness, but the evil demons are not yet annihilated, and I am tired. I so wish to see a world filled with heroic spirit and heroes." Even without knowing them personally or understanding why they referred to him as Venerate, Duan Yun was touched at this moment. He was even quite moved. There are indeed others in this world who, like me, dream of changing the world with heroic spirit. I am not alone in my path. Looking at this dying woman, he murmured, "You're tired. Rest well. If there's another life, you'll surely see such a world." Saying that, he stood up and declared, "For now, watch how these evil demons will die under the force of righteousness. You lot of scum, be merely stepping stones for the future world dominated by heroic spirit." Duan Yun stretched out his hands, and a horrific suction force instantly drew the severely wounded White Sox towards him. With both hands, he accumulated at least 100 people into 2 human pillars, continually sucking in power. But still, it wasn't enough. Beaming divine skill. Damn it, break now. Next instant, the horrific suction power no longer emanated only from his palms but from his whole body. Thus, more White Sox flew towards him, sticking to him, their heads blurred by the suction. These White Sox piled on Duan Yun, already severely injured. Many suffocated to death. Among them, some were crying out maniacally, "I want to be a hero," before dying. Looking at him, it seemed as if many people grew out of Duan Yun. Like leaks, they were being sucked of true chi by him, all wanting to become heroes. And the freshly dead, their death energy was absorbed by Dharma image Xiao Yu, thus making the Netherworld Jade Sword immortal Dharma image even more concrete. She even changed her makeup and attire several times in a flicker, strikingly beautiful yet chilling. On the city walls, the old monk from Taishui Temple watched this terrifying and strange scene. Turning pale with horror, his eyes glazed as he muttered, "Old Demon Duan has gone demonic. Old Demon Duan has gone demonic." At that moment, one-eyed green dragon monk asked, "Master, it seems the old demon is about to be consumed by his own fire. Should you not take this chance to transcend him?" He hadn't finished speaking when his master, already sliding down the slope like a streak of light, had gone. "This demon's power is too great. The old monk needs to retreat and undergo 10 years of arduous cultivation before attempting to reform him." Zhao Deli looked at Duan Yun, who emanated a heroic aura, and with a smile, took her last breath. She seemed to see a future world full of heroic spirit. That day, old Demon Duan's heroic spirit filled the entirety of Lishan City, lingering for a long time. Chapter 143. Hua Wu has a child. The witch is born. The great drama in Lishan City concluded with the White Sox sect suffering heavy casualties, and Duan Yun, young hero Duan, emanating a heroic spirit, marking the period. This group of White Sox set out with the goal of conquering the martial world of Yu State, then all of Zhou, but to their dismay, the first significant act they undertook was brutally murdered by an extremely evil demon accompanied by a group of sinister jade girls. 800 White Sox, nearly all killed or injured, ended up as nourishment for old Demon Duan, their spirits unable to rest in peace. This description comes from the few survivors of the White Sox sect of Lishan City. Within the White Sox sect, there's a belief that after the followers die, their souls would follow the fragrance of the holy socks and be reborn in their homeland, a fact unwaveringly believed by the followers. However, those few survivors now held doubts about this belief. They witnessed their companions absorbed into old Demon Duan's body, their faces a blur, as if an incredibly handsome devil covered in mouths had sucked their souls away. With their souls snatched and devoured, there's no scent of the holy socks left to follow. In the western demon country, vast golden sands sprawl. Within the sands, there's an oasis-like paradise, a magnificent city in view. If a traveler lost in the sands were to see this sight, they would mistake it for a mirage, because it's too magical and majestic, like a dreamlike unreality. Yet this city really exists. It is Holy Sock City, built by the devotees of the White Sox divine sect who enslaved tens of thousands, plundered countless resources, and expended tremendous effort for their sect hierarch. Deep within Holy Sock City, in a splendid building shaped like a white sock, for great heavenly kings are discussing this matter. A heavenly king, responsible for the Yu State incident, is showing unprecedented anger. Since the establishment of the divine sect, blood has been shed within the sect, in fact quite a lot of it, but that bloodshed led to victories. However, this time the bloodshed resulted in failure, a retreat from Yu State. The White Sox sect had grown used to victories, hence many tasks, let alone the secluded sect hierarch, were rarely taken on by the 4 heavenly kings themselves. They did not know the consequences this failure might bring. For the sect hierarch is still in slumber, his warm jade yet to awaken alongside him. Huangshan's sword leader, Lu Qingyu, was eventually rescued. When he emerged, the bodies of the White Sox and White Knitted Sox were being burned into a massive tower, a truly terrifying sight, especially since he knew these were followers of the White Sox sect. In the end, he remains their failed subordinate. Lu Qingyu's pain has eased now, gone. Naturally, it doesn't hurt anymore. Looking at the piles of dead White Sox, Lu Qingyu still finds it difficult to accept this reality. He couldn't help but mutter, "With all 6 of us Huangshan swords gathered, could we accomplish it?" Hearing this, his junior brother and sister fell silent. Lu Qingyu, tossing his flowing hair, said, "What if I learned the cultivation techniques from old Demon Duan? Those ordinary mad women, the Jade Girls, managed to kill so many White Sox, but we are all 1 in a million cultivation geniuses. If learning it still doesn't work, 3rd junior, you learn it too. Among the 6 swords, 5 being men, why should all be men?" Lu Qingyu said with a fixed gaze. "Being a man isn't that fun after all," he added with another fixed gaze. Seeing this, the third junior brother felt a chilling dread. You're not whole anymore, suited to be a woman. Why drag me into this? Indeed, at times Lu Qingyu even wanted to be a woman, not knowing how to urinate now. Being castrated was a first for him, utterly unfamiliar. After witnessing the methods of these jade girls, Duan Yun had to admit they were related to him, especially that cultivation technique. It was his jade sword true understanding. Yet some details were different from his version, such as their imagined Dharma images were all themselves. For instance, they had the habit of practicing the jade sword stance in reverse. Most importantly, they all claimed to be men, and that practicing this cultivation technique would turn them into women, which made Duan Yun break out in cold sweat. Could it be that the rumors about himself weren't entirely false? For a moment, Duan Yun couldn't determine whether their transformation into women was related to the details of practicing the jade sword stance in reverse. He wanted to ascertain who had disseminated this version of jade sword true understanding. Unfortunately, he got no answer. We joined later, mainly under the guidance of Sister Li Deli. It is said that the first sect master and the second sect master entered secluded cultivation several months ago, and we do not know their whereabouts. During this time, our group of sisters discovered that many fellow disciples were not truly upholding justice, but had many moral corruptions, such as some fellow disciples who turned into women like to stir trouble intentionally, and then engaged in illicit acts with men and women, with both sect masters doing nothing to stop it. After that, our group left, unwilling to stay with them. Duan Yun figured it out. Most of these followers of his were formerly pitiful men. These pitiful men, after cultivating jade sword true understanding and gaining strength, still remembered the taste of being pitiful. They sympathized with the weak, liked to kill and make fools of those strong who tormented the pitiful. Hence this heroic spirit was very orthodox, quite capturing his essence. As for the other group of jade girls, their heroic spirit was probably not pure, or they had questionable motives to begin with. Duan Yun thought of something and said, "By leaving the original sword sect, you may face retaliation from former fellow disciples. You are simply not the same kind of people. I don't know the specifics of your transformations, but can only suggest that when you try to cultivate the Dharma image, you could try having me undergo various changes, starting from changing clothes. His sword immortal Dharma image, starting from the skin of white silk and black silk, might help them. The other batch of jade girls, if their heroic spirit is indeed impure, he would need to clean up these impure followers, mainly to find out the instigators, the true identities of the two who disseminated this jade sword true understanding. They managed to corrupt his upright and proper jade sword true understanding into a degenerate demon technique. He, Mr. Duan, young hero Duan, must strike down those harming others with pirated versions. After Duan Yun left, a jade girl tried to change his skin. With a boom, his Dharma image's arms stretched out, no longer resembling arms but rather like tentacles. Sisters, my true chi and heroic spirit have both grown stronger. The guidance from Heroic Venerate is truly effective. The next moment, Heroic Venerate's Dharma image underwent various changes, some arms growing eyeballs, some revealing muscular chests without clothes. In any case, a group of women tirelessly enjoyed changing his skin. Almost at the same time, in a dark room, Hua Wen stood there sweating, her face filled with fear and anxiety. "Sister, are you sure it's okay to give birth like this?" Hua Wu was seen standing upside down, her belly bulging, her muscles undulating irregularly. "Sister, don't worry, I know my child best. He's coming out." The next moment, as Hua Wu's body continued its bizarre muscle movements, a baby crawled out from her body. It was a male infant who, upon seeing his mother's upside-down posture, also giggled and followed in standing upside down where the amniotic fluid had broken. Even weirder was that his hair was multicolored, resembling a peacock. "Sister, my child will cultivate old demon Duan's technique from a young age. He will be the world's greatest and most terrifying demon." Saying this, she and the child who had just crawled out of her belly laughed together. Their laughter was almost identical, not quite human nor bird-like, very eerie. Even Hua Wen felt momentarily that her sister was very unfamiliar. as if she were the most primitive and terrifying monster. Chapter 144. The Intoxicating Old Demon Duan. A cold wind blew through the valley. The bodies in the mud had long since been mostly devoured by the eagles and pigeons attracted to the scene. Some eagles and pigeons were swelling round with fullness, yet they kept on feeding. This was a catastrophe for humanity, but a feast for them. Suddenly, with a booming sound, a figure fell from the sky, smashing into the ground and creating a huge pit, and numerous eagles and pigeons were caught in the aftermath, their flesh rending and blood spilling. Duan Yun stood in the pit, surrounded by swirling chi force, with breaking body sword energy occasionally bursting out. That day he had absorbed too much true chi from White Sox, and though it had all fused into his body, it was ultimately too complex and required time to digest. Duan Yun took a step and, like a cannonball, shot up from the ground and vanished. When you talk about the discomfort of absorbing excessive and intricate true chi, it's not always the case. It's akin to overeating and the food isn't particularly tasty. But the feeling of being overstuffed isn't pleasant, so he needed to hurry and refine it. After several leaps over 30 feet high, Duan Yun finally landed in front of a wooden cabin. It was in this cabin that he first encountered White Sox. He hadn't expected that after killing off White Sox in Lishan City, he would return here. Duan Yun sat cross-legged, adjusting his inner breath, allowing this true chi to assimilate with him. But this time it was a bit too much to stomach. No matter how he tried to assimilate it, it felt off. As for the issue of feeling off, Duan Yun could tolerate much more than an average person. A person who could emit sword chi from his entire body was certainly not normal. At this moment, the black mist on his belt flowed, and Little Yu had already appeared behind Duan Yun. Afterwards, the process of refining became effortless for Duan Yun. It was even quite enjoyable, sometimes so comfortable he wanted to hum. This was because whenever Duan Yun's body produced deviant true chi, Little Yu would help him to channel it out. This channeling method was very sleek and clever, and even brought with it an indescribable sense of relief. Thus, within the wooden cabin deep at night, from time to time Duan Yun's comfortable sighs could be heard, drawing strange glances from the surrounding animals, which were then scared away by the externally channeled true chi. For 3 consecutive days, Duan Yun was refining true chi, with Little Yu tirelessly aiding him. During this time, news about Lishan City had reached Yuzhou City. Even though Qingqi Bureau's night crow, Huang Feihong, was in the city at the time, and Qingqi Bureau sent someone to investigate afterwards, they still didn't obtain any definite information. First, Huang Feihong was imprisoned at the time and not present at the site of the great battle, and second, although there were many bystanders at the scene, they either were too far to see details, or they were knocked unconscious by the stench. In the martial world, many major events often have bloodthirsty spectators present. These people are exceptionally bold, willing to risk their lives for a spectacle, and often have access to sights unseen by the common folk, and they enjoy sharing what they've witnessed. In such times, they are the most appropriate to turn to. Yet, this time in the Battle of Lishan City, these bloodthirsty spectators were all wiped out. A good number were killed just by being crushed by Sox. Qingqi Bureau could only speculate about the truth from the countless fragmented tales. What is for sure is that the Jade Girls of the Jade Sword sect fought with White Sox, and it turns out that the White Sox, who easily defeated Huangshan 3 Swords and even castrated the sword leader of Huangshan 6 Swords, were suppressed by the Jade Girls. When both sides clashed in the decisive battle, given the situation at that time, it was only natural for old Demon Duan to take action, and he achieved the victory. But how exactly he won, no one can describe clearly. Perhaps the Taishui temple monk who could have clarified a bit had already slipped back to the temple to cultivate and temporarily forgot his onerous mission to save all beings. In any case, in the eyes of those who learned the information, old Demon Duan is stronger than his Jade Sword sect which he concocted. Jade Sword sect is stronger than White Sox, and White Sox is stronger than Huangshan 3 Swords. It goes without saying who is the weakest among them. Can be said that Huangshan Sword sect is the one most seriously hurt. For those in the Yellow Sword sect, the sword leader Lu Qingyu merely lost his manhood, but Huangshan Sword sect has lost its precious prestige. Originally a prominent sword sect in the martial world, it has now become a basic unit of measure. When news of White Sox crushing defeat arrived, along with the victory of Old Demon Duan and his Jade Sword sect, goddess catcher Su Lizzie couldn't help but spin around joyfully several times. This joy naturally included the retreat of White Sox and Yujo's escape from a terrible calamity, but she had to admit that much of her happiness was due to Old Demon Duan. Previously, she had done some things against Qingqi Bureau's rules, worrying over Old Demon Duan being left unsupported. Doing things for a demon against the rules of the Bureau was a big taboo for Goddess Catcher, yet Su Lizzie had done so. Even when she lost trace of Duan Yun and did not know where he might be, she felt a sense of loss. Su Lizzie gazed at the sky, her eyes dimmed. "Will I never see him again?" She once told Duan Yun that her ideal man was a universally revered and peerless hero. But now, she had to admit that her heart fluttered for this universally feared demon. Having feelings for a demon? Su Lizzie, have you gone bad? Where is your pride as the goddess catcher? What about the steadfastness of good versus evil since ancient times? Where is the peerless hero in your heart? Su Lizzie was infuriated to discover that all these things seemed to have become blurred. Have I become like this because Old Demon Duan secretly planted a Dao heart demon seed in me? He's so shameless. He must have feelings for me in his heart. At this moment, Lang Yiming and Lang Yixue, sisters and colleagues of Su Lizzie, were also experiencing similar confusion. They had come to Yuzhu Villa to deliver a message to Duan Yun. That day, Duan Yun had entrusted them with investigating some matters. As divine catchers, why would they believe his nonsense? Yet they really did look into it, intending to help clear his name. But what they found was nothing. Dr. Xue of the Jiangzhong sect swore on his heart that he had personally witnessed the transformation of the brothers Hua Wen and Hua Wu into demons, and the same was true for Mr. Liu. Dr. Xue was famously tight-lipped. They had no reason to doubt him in the first place. It was only the fault of Old Demon Duan for being too good an actor, fooling their innocent hearts into believing him a bit. Still unwilling to give up, Lang Yiming was ready to find Hua Wen and Hua Wu, as well as Mr. Liu, to reaffirm this matter. It was at this time they found some circumstances that might work in Duan Yun's favor. Hua Wen and Hua Wu mysteriously disappeared. Even they could not find them. In the martial world, the cultivation level of the goddess catcher might not be top-notch, but they had their own strengths like Lang Yiming and Lang Yixue, who were extremely good at tracking people. When even they had no clues, one could only say that it was a baffling disappearance, which, no matter how you looked at it, seemed to be conspiratorial. Rushing to Mr. Liu's place without stopping, they learned that Mr. Liu had died, and even his body had been burned. At this, the sisters had even more reason to believe that Duan Yun might indeed be a good person. They would absolutely not wrong a good person, especially him. That's why they rushed over to report, only to find the villa deserted. So the two women waited in Yusher town, waiting for his return. After several days of waiting, Lang Yiming couldn't help but complain. "Sister, if he doesn't come back, are you going to wait for him your entire life?" Lang Yixue responded, "If you don't want to wait, you can go back first, and I'll pass the message to him for you." "Nice try. Don't think that just because he only has eyes for you, he'll only think of you. He used to be interested in me. It's just that I didn't agree," Lang Yiming said indignantly. Lang Yixue sighed and said, "Sister, can't you be a little more generous? Are you calling me petty?" During their argument, Duan Yun had fully refined the complex true qi within his body. All he knew was that his true qi had grown stronger, but he couldn't determine if it had grown by as much as 1 or 2 floors. Yet he was sure of one thing: Little Yu had become more and more skilled at guiding it for him. He enjoyed the process so much that he intentionally let a stream of qi go astray during the day to get Little Yu to come over. But to his surprise, she didn't come. After guiding it by himself, Duan Yun set out on his journey. This time, he had an ongoing main task that wasn't completed yet, which was to go to Yuzhou to enjoy hot pot. Eventually, Duan Yun sat in Yuanyang building in Yu State City, finally savoring the hot pot he had been longing for. In the pot, the clear broth and the spicy broth were divided, clear and distinct. Duan Yun joyfully alternated between 10 bites of the spicy dishes and 1 bite of the clear broth dishes. Half full, and as you state city's lights began to shine, he ate hot pot and watched the city's festivities, suddenly missing Yuju Villa. Yuju Villa definitely didn't have such authentic hot pot, but it had his friends. With friends, anything they ate together was good. So, young hero Duan decided it was time to return home. He missed Shadow Ing and the Murong brothers. He had always felt that the two were like his power banks. Whenever he was tired, they could recharge him with energy. This was why, in this world of killing and deceit, he hadn't gone mad, and still remained a pure and upright good person. Chapter 145. The bigger the young hero's cellar, the better. Old Demon Duan leading the Jade Girl Sword sect to repel White Sox was naturally a good deed. But the martial world's opinion of Old Demon Duan remained unchanged. It was nothing more than two evil demons biting each other. This was the most straightforward reaction from the people of the martial world. As to whether Old Demon Duan was terrifyingly strong, they no longer wished to delve into it. The fact that he could make the Red House Fairy and the Tang family's young master wet themselves, and in front of Zhu Xiang and Zhu Haimian at Zhu Yan Manor, violated his wife and killed both, not allowing this pair of star-crossed lovers to touch each other even in death, had already proven Old Demon Duan's hair-raising strength and cruelty. Yes, young hero Duan's fame was indeed growing, so much so that upon his return to Yun State, he had acquired another big black pot to carry, this one bestowed to him face-to-face by bullhead Zhu Haimian. The crux of the matter was that ordinary people really couldn't differentiate the real from the fake. After all, aside from the point about the bullhead, the rest was true. The lies that are 9 parts true and 1 part false are the most confusing. Moreover, the storyteller described in great detail the attributes of the bullhead, and the listeners, after hearing these flavorful tales, were even more generous with their tips, spreading the stories to the point that Duan Yun was fast becoming the yellow-haired villain of casual books. Regarding this black pot, Duan Yun felt it was no big deal to carry it, as he himself enjoyed listening to such spicy stories. And the protagonist of these spicy stories was himself, which made them feel very immersive when he listened. Upon returning to Yusher town, the first thing Duan Yun did was to listen to the storyteller in the tea house. This time around, he had accomplished his mission beyond expectations and had successfully brought back a panda. Panda Dubai was originally rented, but when Duan Yun returned the panda to the Mei family with his donkey Little Gray, the Mei family master must have been moved by his heroic deeds. Calling him young hero Duan every other word, he not only refunded the deposit but also gifted Dubai to him. He said that Panda Dubai had always been a panda with a sense of justice, and that it was an honor for the panda to follow young hero Duan for the rest of its life. Dubai on the spot expressed its agreement by hugging Duan Yun's thighs tightly. Thus, Duan Yun had acquired one more mount. Of course, Dubai hugged Duan Yun's legs not because it was born with heroic spirit, but because it knew that following Duan Yun meant it no longer had to be a breeding bear. The Mei family was famous for raising and training pandas, but Dubai knew too well the pain of being a breeding bear, being fed medicines daily to induce mating, then giving birth to cubs and having to take care of them. It was enough to drive any bear insane. Pandas were not uncommon in Yu State, but in Yun State, they were a rarity, hence attracting a lot of attention outside the tea house. But due to its inherently fierce nature, no one dared to get close. Duan Yun was willing to take on the mantle of the yellow-haired villain if it meant that, in this way, he could carry out demon extermination, letting more evil demons know the risk of their wives being violated for their wrongdoings. This too was a way to promote another kind of heroic spirit. When Duan Yun returned to Yuzhu Villa, he found the extensive villa empty and deserted, without a single person in sight. The Murong brothers had failed to return with their sister, so where had Shadow Ing gone? Only at this moment did Duan Yun realize that he didn't know much about Xining. He knew that she was from the lower echelons, skilled in boxing, cultivated the 9-death silkworm, liked all sorts of clothing, a standard materialist, and even shared his fondness for stockings. This time he didn't bring back any new stockings, but while absorbing the true chi of white socks, he learned of the craftsmanship of those stockings, intending to study them further with her upon return. Unfortunately, she was nowhere to be found. After arriving at Yuzhu Villa, Dubai went to the graveyard to dig bamboo shoots, while Little Gray went to the backyard to graze. After being away for so long, the grass in the backyard had grown quite a bit. Seeing the dust in Shen Ying's room, Duan Yun knew she had also been out for quite some time. For a moment, Duan Yun felt that the vast mountain villa, joined with the graveyard outside, conveyed an indescribable sense of loneliness. He remembered the first time he met the Murong brothers. They were lying there like corpses. It was clear that at that time, the Murong brothers, due to a heartache, truly wanted to die. Because this villa, with no friends and only spiders and mice for company, truly resembled a graveyard. Duan Yun, looking at the villa shrouded in the night, silently decided that he must do his best to treat Murong brothers' sister. Their sister was also his sister. How could he not take good care of her? Since there's nothing else to do, Duan Yun went to expand the cellar. Figuring that the Murong brothers' sisters were plenty and the world was so abnormal, there would surely be no shortage of patients for Dr. Duan to treat, so he decided to start by enlarging the sick rooms. Better not to run out of space with a surge of sisters later on. Thus, Duan Yun's sword chi sliced through the earth, and using the Biming divine skill, he absorbed clumps of dirt, emerging from the cellar. Little Gray only saw a mud giant suddenly climb out from the ground, scaring it into incessant bleeding. Big White, upon hearing the noise and initially rushing to protect Little Gray behind it, ended up shielding Little Gray in front after seeing such a giant. Amidst the terrified gazes of a donkey and a bear, the mud giant leaped onto the wall, and with a forceful push, sent mud and rocks flying, revealing Duan Yun's true form. Realizing it was just Duan Yun's trickery, the donkey and bear finally breathed a sigh of relief. This man just loves to startle animals. After some time to adjust, Duan Yun became increasingly adept at digging cellars. He suddenly realized that his skills would make him an excellent hand at civil engineering. In just a few hours, Duan Yun had already doubled the size of the cellar and went on to cut some bamboo to reinforce it. By then, he felt a bit tired. Indeed, being a laborer was no easy feat, so he decided to sleep and continue tomorrow. He felt that the Murong brothers' estranged sisters must be more than just those few, and he should double the expansion again just to be sure. If he wasn't worried about collapsing the villa, he would have even considered making it bigger. The cellar of a young hero, of course, should be as spacious as possible. The next day, Duan Yun got to work early in the morning. Meanwhile, Lung Yiming was walking on the road, sniffing furiously for a scent of Duan Yun, anxiously saying, "Sister, he's really back. Do we really have to go?" Her tone sounded just like, "Do we really have to go get ourselves killed?" Yes, the prospect of seeing Duan Yun was both exciting and frightening for them, a mix of fear and eagerness. At this moment, Yuzhu Villa was already in sight. Thud-thud. Lung Yiming pressed her legs together, knocking on the old wooden door of the villa. For a while, there was no response from inside. Just as Lang Yiming and Lang Ishue hesitated on whether to knock again, the wooden door suddenly flung open, revealing a black and white figure. The two goddess catchers leaped backward in fright, only then realizing it was a standing panda. Afterward, Big White courteously gestured behind, inviting them to come in. As Lang Yiming and Lang Ishue walked further in, they suddenly tensed up. That's because Duan Yun, covered in dirt, came out from behind them, handsomely saying, "Didn't expect it to be you too. Please come in. Please come in." Noticing the two sisters staring at him, he quickly patted the dust off his clothes and said, Sorry. The cellar isn't finished yet. I haven't had the chance to clean up." Hearing the word cellar, the sisters clenched their legs together as cold sweat broke out. It's over old demon Duan's cellar. This time, they really did come to deliver themselves. Chapter 146. The Noble Guest in the Cellar. For Lung Yiming, the dungeon of the young and handsome old demon Duan was both a near and distant dream to her. When she first visited Duan Yun's old residence in Lishui town and saw the dungeon, she always felt that the young demon miles away could pop out unexpectedly and viciously imprison her there. Later, as more and more evil deeds attributed to Duan Yun came to light, she became more certain of the danger she had sensed at that time. He pretended to be a newbie, stared at her chest, and secretly dug a dungeon. he definitely had some ideas. Leng Yiming was thankful to have escaped disaster. Afterward, they witnessed with their own eyes at the graveyard how old demon Duan slaughtered, which could be said to give one nightmares. Later on, when meeting in Wangchun City, the sisters thought they were destined to be captured and tortured by the old demon. Instead, Duan Yun did not do so but asked them to help investigate to prove his innocence. And she and her sister naively chose to believe him once. After finding some information, they rushed to inform him without stopping. But who would have thought, after all the twists and turns, they ended up back in the dungeon. Having returned to Yuzhu Villa, Duan Yun felt a bit alone and cold, and now that two old acquaintances had arrived, he ought to give them a proper welcome. He cooked the meals himself, which gave Lang Yixue and Lang Yiming the eerie feeling of eating a last meal. Duan Yun prepared 4 dishes and a soup, and went to old Chen's place to buy some roast meats. Although not very lavish, it was quite enough to eat. During the meal, Lang Yixue and Lang Yiming at first ate nervously, but then suddenly discovered that the food Duan Yun made was delicious. It had a special flavor, similar to the cuisine of Yu State, yet distinct. Thinking that even if he had to be imprisoned in a dungeon, tortured and killed, eating a meal cooked by the old demon Duan would be worth it. As they ate, the sisters gradually relaxed and began to eat and drink with gusto. After finishing the meal, Lang Yixue and Lang Yiming conveyed to Duan Yun the information they were tasked with. After listening to the narration of the goddess catchers, Duan Yun couldn't help but reflect. You mean, apart from the words of old man Shui from the Jiangzhong sect, there is no other concrete evidence? Lang Yixue nodded. That's right. Duan Yun couldn't help but say pensively, on my trip to Yu State to eradicate demons, I happened to encounter a member of the Jade Sword sect. They practiced my cultivation technique indeed, but with some minor differences. First of all, my cultivation technique is definitely flawless. Practicing it properly will result in majestic prowess, and cannot possibly make one turn into a woman. Upon hearing this, Lang Yiming and Lang Yixue both looked down simultaneously, sneaking a peek, then like touching an electric shock, withdrew their gaze. It truly can, Duan Yun stated assertively. The Murong brothers were taught hand by him. We know, replied Lang Yiming, but she didn't think the same way in her heart. She believed old demon Duan could achieve immense prowess. After all, he was a demon that made countless women go weak at the knees. However, when he claimed there was nothing wrong with his cultivation technique, do you believe him? Duan Yun continued to analyze. Mr. Lu's death was suspicious, and the disappearance of Hua Wu and Hua Wen was also strange. I always said there must be an issue. I am also looking for who disseminated this slightly different Jade Sword true understanding. However, eventually, Duan Yun's gaze fell on the 2 goddess catchers, sincere and open. He even dared to swear on his conscience that he was not a demon that brought harm to people at will, but a young hero who acted with righteousness, his actions filled with heroic spirit and beyond doubt. Actually, none of these matters anymore. As long as you 2 divine catchers are willing to believe that I am a good person, the truth will eventually come to light. Why don't you come with me to have a look? Said Duan Yun suddenly. Saying so, he headed in the direction of the dungeon. Here it comes. The moment has finally arrived. Seeing this scene, Lang Yiming and Lang Yixue instinctively felt fear, but they dared not defy the words of old demon Duan. Lang Yiming and Lang Yixue, the 2 sisters, had united their hearts, and together they actually possessed the power of Tongyu. In the martial world, this already placed them among the top martial artists. Furthermore, with the identity of goddess catchers from Qingqi Bureau backing them, they had become the nightmare of many in the martial world. But at this moment, the 2 goddess catchers who caused many villains in the martial world to tremble in fear didn't even have the courage to defy old demon Duan. Lang Yiming thought of his formidable fingers, and her body started to weaken. Duan Yun had already disappeared into the entrance of the cellar, and they had no choice but to follow with immense fear. It was different to go in on their own accord than to be forcefully brought in by the old demon. For old demon Duan, obedience might be effective. Even as goddess catchers, they couldn't help but remember the old demon's survival method, narrated by storytellers. That is, no matter what he does, no matter what role he plays, you have to comply and keep playing along with him. Below, the cellar was its usual dim, but much larger and deeper than the two goddess catchers had imagined. Much larger than the cellar in old Demon Duan's little medicine shop. Leng Yiming couldn't help but wonder if this was a sign of the old demon's ever-expanding ambition. At that moment, Duan Yun suddenly coughed, startling the two sisters, who both twitched and clenched their legs together, standing as if they were soldiers being scolded by a general. Both of you ladies should know, despite often performing heroic deeds, my actual profession is that of a gynecologist. But on this journey, I've found that the martial world is sick. Most of those who practice martial arts are ill, some curable, some not. And as a doctor, of course, I will do my utmost to cure those I can. Look at this cellar. It can accommodate dozens of patients without any problem. I plan to treat the curable martial artists here. Duan Yun said earnestly. Yes, starting with treating the sister of the Murong brothers and expanding this endeavor was indeed his goal. Being the elder sister, Leng Yishue reacted quickly and hurriedly said, Dr. Duan is commendably just, and will surely become the most formidable divine doctor in the martial world in the future. She had already figured out that this time old Demon Duan was playing the role of a doctor, and according to the survival method, they would have to play along. Duan Yun quickly said, You flatter me too much, ladies. My work in this field started late, and I'm relatively skilled in gynecology, but I still need to practice more and delve deeper. Since you two are here, let me sort things out for you as practice and experience. I hope you won't mind. Not at all. Not at all, Leng Yishue said, steeling herself. Here it comes. Finally it comes. The old demon has finally revealed his sharp fangs, ready to completely devour their beauty. There's no helping it, they were just too attractive to a demon like Duan Yun. Please lie down. Trembling, Leng Yishue and Leng Yiming lay down. The moment they lay down, their eyes closed, their bodies shaking. Relax. Relax. Duan Yun's voice was like a lullaby, gradually soothing the tense sisters. But suddenly, the intense cries of two women erupted and persisted, startling Big White and Little Gray outside the cellar. What's going on? Has the master messed with someone again? Chapter 147. Extraordinary Wisdom Sparkles. Jade Finger Heaven initially accomplished. Duan Yun invited Leng Yiming and Leng Yishue to visit the cellar, which was actually a demonstration of his resolve to heal the world and to prove to Goddess Catcher that he is a righteous good person. If they are willing to believe him, then more and more people who think of him as a young hero will do so eventually. It's just like how, in his past life, sellers like to obtain some sort of institutional certification. The court's Goddess Catcher is the best endorsement. As long as all the Goddess Catchers around the world believe he is a good person, a young hero, how many people in the world will still believe the rumors that he is a demon? Seeing the two elegant Goddess Catchers appear in his cellar, Duan Yun's extraordinary wisdom shone, and combining it with his professional gynecologist qualities, he decided on the spot to demonstrate his healing techniques to the two Goddess Catchers. Thus, Leng Yiming and Leng Yishue were forced to lie down, and the moment they did, the sisters held hands. Take off your shoes, said Duan Yun seriously. Leng Yiming said absent-mindedly, Only the shoes? For now, just the shoes, Duan Yun replied. The sisters immediately felt a tacit understanding inside. So this old demon likes feet. Truly bizarre. At the next instant, the sisters' bodies suddenly tensed up, issuing intermittent cries. These sounds were extremely horrifying to Big White and Little Gray. They felt those two women were suffering greatly, but in reality, Leng Yiming and Leng Yishue were incredibly exhilarated. Their minds went blank, screaming instinctively. Because in that instant, Duan Yun's true qi entered from the soles of their feet and invaded deep into their bodies. That true qi was very dominant and powerful. Their own true qi tried instinctively to block it, but were defeated and succumbed one after another. Suddenly, that true qi sped up, passing through a certain meridian in their bodies. A strong sensation of pleasure violently penetrated their minds. Leng Yiming and Leng Yishue felt they shivered both pleasingly and extensively, and simultaneously, that meridian cleared up, they felt liberated and delightfully tearful. Or rather, they were already in tears. It was too pleasurable and comforting. What if they could never enjoy this again? Amid this exhilarating feeling, they realized that their long-stagnant cultivation realm had loosened, showing signs of a breakthrough. Thus, with teary eyes, they momentarily saw Duan Yun as the Jade Emperor. Leng Yixue and Leng Yiming eventually left the cold, gloomy cellar, but the fear and terror they felt when entering had turned into reluctance to leave. They felt there might be no other place in the world that could bring such comfort anymore. Even now, their postures remained buoyant. Stepping on the ground felt like stepping on clouds. At this moment, the two women were completely conquered by Duan Yun's medical skills. Old Demon Duan pretended to be a doctor, yet he was one of the rare master healers in this world. Yes, for a time they felt that the term master healer was specifically coined for Duan Yun, and other so-called divine doctors somewhat didn't measure up. After walking a distance from the mountain villa, Leng Yixue suddenly awoke and said, "Sister, we can't keep doing this, can we?" Leng Yiming replied airily, "Can't do what? This method of Duan Yun feels too comfortable. If we become addicted to it, wouldn't we be completely under his control?" "What's wrong with that?" said Leng Yiming. "Do you hear how unreasonable that sounds? If one day, you can't live without his method and he asks us to kill our own parents or destroy the Qingqi Bureau, what would you do?" Leng Yixue explained. Hearing this, Leng Yiming sobered up quite a bit, but still reluctantly said, "So you mean, we shouldn't go to that cellar anymore for him to treat us?" Leng Yixue also felt terrible, saying, "The more this is the case, the more we must resist the temptation and not be controlled by the demon. Some of our predecessors ended up this way. Most goddess catchers at Qingqi Bureau are of strong mind, yet some ultimately become playthings of the demon, unable to control themselves." Initially, the two sisters thought that these were cases of weak-minded predecessors, but now it seems they hadn't encountered a formidable demon. Encountering someone like Duan Yun, you can easily fall into a trap. Leng Yixue looked at her and said, "Sister, be a bit more rational. What legitimate doctor uses a cellar as a hospital? There are many suspicious aspects about Duan Yun, but we need to find evidence to prove it. He has said that the cultivation technique practiced by Jade Sword Sect was originally his technique, and to clear his suspicions, he needs to find the person who first spread this technique. Then let's help him find that person," Leng Yiming said firmly. The two goddess catchers had already left. Duan Yun was confident that his genuine heroic spirit and medical practitioner's compassionate heart had touched them again. Last time the sisters were willing to trust him and help him find people and evidence. This time, they would undoubtedly help him find the originator who slightly altered his Jade Sword true understanding. For free. Would the two goddess catchers do so if they weren't moved by his righteousness and the bond of having a righteous partner? It was as if the goddess catchers had no serious business the whole day except to serve him for free. Duan Yun looked at his fingers and felt an airy sensation. Just now, by helping both sisters at the same time, he proved that his medical skills had improved. This method of alleviation was inspired by Little Yu helping him. At that moment, he observed an uneven flow of energy around the lofty chests of the two sisters, showing the symptoms of long-term anxiety and insomnia, reflecting his extraordinary wisdom. It felt great to guide the misguided true qi, a sensation of thorough relief. What about specifically using true qi to guide and clear it? What about adding the vibrations from flirtatious finger strength? In the past, Duan Yun might have only used acupuncture to relieve such conditions, but a brand new approach showed him new possibilities. Thus, with the intense moans of pleasure and the continuous tensing and relaxing of the goddess catcher's body, Duan Yun realized his medical skills had indeed reached a new level. At least, the congestion in the sisters' chests was thoroughly alleviated, completely and from the inside out. And from the sisters' reactions, they were very satisfied with his treatment method. Since this healing technique is a finger technique and originated from the guidance from Little Yu, let's call it Jade Finger Heaven. A wave of pleasurable sounds arose, and in the cellar, Duan Yun had a go himself and indeed felt exhilaratingly uplifted. This finger technique was really fantastic. He, Mr. Duan, young hero Duan, would no longer just be a gynecologist but could save many more patients with this finger technique, showcasing his medical practitioner's compassionate heart. Thinking about how he's a step closer to his goal of drastic measures with a compassionate heart, Duan Yun felt elated and continued digging. This cellar was still too small to contain his compassionate heart. At that moment, he heard a thump and realized he might have dug up something. Chapter 148. Am I really a bit perverted? With a thud, Duan Yun discovered that he had struck some kind of wooden chest. His first reaction was that it must be a coffin. This Yuzhu villa was adjacent to the graveyard, and it was possible that it was built on a burial ground, so finding a coffin wasn't out of the ordinary. Who knows, there might even be a gloomy ancient tomb, and he, young hero Duan, would have to moonlight as a tomb raider captain, lighting a candle to open a coffin. When Duan Yun dragged the chest out, he quickly recognized it, and at the same time, felt a strange impulse to open it. He instantly knew why this chest looked familiar. This was the very chest he had dragged out of the water, containing the corpse of Shadow Ing. How did this chest get buried here? Duan Yun cleared the soil on top of the chest and realized he had come near a few plum trees. Had he dug all the way to the front courtyard? But this wasn't his concern. What he cared about most was the chest. He had an inexplicable urge. Just like that night, he was very eager to fish the chest out of the lake. Was Shadow Ing inside? Which damn person buried her again? No wonder he couldn't find her. At this moment, Duan Yun actually became tense. He knew that Shunning practiced a unique cultivation technique. Presumably, being buried alive wouldn't harm her, but the martial world was dangerous, and one could never be too careful. As with the last time he opened a chest, Duan Yun's emotions were slightly unsettled, but his hands and feet were nimble. Moments later, the chest was open, and Duan Yun was momentarily stunned. Shadow Ing lay inside, appearing very peaceful, as if she had passed away contentedly. Most importantly, there was a thin layer of delicate silk enveloping her. This silk was snow-white, misty like smoke, giving her an ethereal and sacred beauty, with a faint allure. Duan Yun couldn't help but feel his heart race. Shen Ing was clothed, but at this moment, whether it was due to the frosty silk or for some other reason, her clothes appeared very form-fitting under the veil of silk. How should one describe this sensation? Duan Yun was aware that there were many types of stockings. Ankle length, calf length, knee-high, thigh-high, right at the thighs root, full pantyhose, and even some that extended to the waist called waist-high silk. And he also knew of a kind of stocking that seemed to wrap the whole body in silk called body silk. And now, Shun Ing seemed to evoke this feeling, paired with her beautiful features, long legs, and perky buttocks. She exuded an enchanting allure even with the flat-chested debuff. Did Shadow Ing seem a bit bigger? Although just slightly, she indeed looked bigger, like a small mound suddenly appearing in a plain. No matter how gentle the mound, it still exists and could be quite noticeable on the plain. It's all about the comparison. As Duan Yun was staring intently, a ghostly voice arose. Have you seen enough? Speaking, Shun Ing opened her beautiful eyes. Duan Yun raised his right hand, swiped across his palm, and closed her eyes for her, saying, Not yet. You can die a little longer. Ah, pervert. An angry fist shot out from the chest with rolling air waves, forcing even Duan Yun to temporarily retreat. After lying in the chest, Shadow Ying's fist technique had improved. The revival of Shen Ing, who was trapped in the chest, brought life back to Yuzhu Villa, which was like a tomb. It was a minor reunion for the two, and apart from the joy of friends meeting again, the symptom of mutually enjoying each other's company seemed to have intensified. Looking at the two of them, who appeared very well-matched, Panda Dabai wore a puzzled expression. It always thought that the black-clothed woman who was close to Duan Yun, who occasionally wrapped around his waist, had a special relationship with him, but the woman before it now seemed just as intimate. One has to say humans are complex creatures unlike pandas who just work, mate, and then take care of their young. At this moment, Duan Yun and Shen Ing were sitting on the steps, gazing at the carefree clouds in the sky. It was a rare good weather day, crisp and cozy in autumn, neither cold nor hot, and both of them knew that in a few days, it would gradually become colder, with likely snow and ice covering this region. Winter brings to mind the cold, stillness, not as pleasant as the gentleness of spring, the passion of summer, or the freshness of autumn. In any case, what Duan Yun disliked the most was winter, because for a very long time he had been poor. Winter is hard for the poor, with thin clothes and bad food, and most of the beggars on the streets usually die during winter. Duan Yun was clearly no longer poor, even after donating all the money he earned from demon extermination to disaster relief, as the 1,000 taels of silver deposit from Panda Dubai had genuinely returned to his purse. But he still disliked winter just as before. At this time, Shen Ying couldn't help but speak. In the name of young hero Duan Lang, you killed a group of people from Red House, saved a young master of Tang family and several disciples of Tang sect, then went on to annihilate the family of demon Zhu Haimian, broke the river mouth within the territory of Yu State to prevent the flood from worsening, and even donated all your assets to disaster relief. Later you joined forces with Jade Sword sect, crushing White Sox sect, preventing a disaster in Yu State. Duan Yun nodded, saying, "That's right." Shen Ying couldn't help but ridicule. "And now, the rumors outside say that the old demon you are even more perverted." Duan Yun grumbled, "I've always said that there's a mysterious force deliberately messing with me. But in the area of Yu State affected by the disaster, many people are still grateful to me, and there's a lot of people offering incense at the base of my stele." Chapter 149. Hearing this, Shen Ying couldn't help but laugh, saying, "How does it feel to offer incense?" Duan Yun sarcastically said, "Honestly, it's a bit weird." His main concern was that the stone statue was carved very vividly, and it was in a shade of ash white. Looking at its handsome face gave him the feeling of looking at a black and white photo. At this moment, Shen Ying solemnly asked, "But I still want to ask, did you really assault Zhu Haimian's wife in front of him? Do you think I'm that kind of pervert?" Duan Yun retorted. Shen Ying pondered, "I didn't think so before, but now it seems possible." "What? Which decent young hero likes to see people draped in silk all over? You're a pervert to begin with, and that Chen Ying of the Huangshan sword sect has long been famous for her beauty." Duan Yun, looking at Shen Ying beside him, said with a gloomy face, "One look at that Chen Ying and you can tell she has a bad temper, excessive bile, yellow urine, irregular menstruation. How could I possibly have thoughts about such a person? As for your silk, I'm just studying. This kind of full-body silk is really worth researching." While saying this, Duan Yun took out the piece of silk he had previously plucked from Shen Ying and started examining it, which looked extremely perverted in Shen Ying's eyes. She tried to snatch it back, but Duan Yun dodged. Why should he give back silk that he had harvested himself? Then Duan Yun couldn't help asking, "Little Ying, aren't your family worried about you being out for so long?" Shen Ying suddenly became nervous and said, "Why are you suddenly asking about my family? You're not thinking of meeting my parents, are you? I've said it before, my dad won't mess around. You're not my brother, and it's even less likely that I would fall in love with you and then chop you." "Wait a minute. If you're not my brother, does that mean you want to propose? My dad might actually like you. With the orders of parents and the words of matchmakers, wouldn't I be forced to marry you then, have to consummate the marriage with you, and let you research my silk again? Old demon Duan, you're so perverted." Saying so, she covered her flat chest with both hands, looking at Duan Yun with a guarded expression, and walked away. Duan Yun sat there, veins popping on his forehead. Just one sentence and she could imagine so much. Shadow Ying deserves to be called Shadow Ying. In terms of overthinking, even the Shadow Divine Catcher seems slightly inferior. This is a sickness. As a doctor whose skills are increasingly maturing, Duan Yun felt that Shadow Ying also needed to be confined in the cellar for treatment. Duan Yun, while examining the fine silk from Shen Ying, pondered seriously. Being able to produce white silk from her body was a very strange thing in itself, and even a little scary, but Duan Yun had to admit that Shadow Ying, who could instantly wrap herself in a white silk battle suit, suddenly became a lot sexier. At least to him, that kind of skin was very attractive. Am I really a little bit perverted? At dusk, the cooking smoke curled up. Be it Yuzhu Villa or nearby Yusher town, the atmosphere always feels most peaceful at this time. The cattle, horses, and people who have been busy all day can finally take a breath, eat some hot food, relieve the fatigue of the entire day, and some may even enjoy a drink of cloudy wine. Even the people of the martial world who commit adultery and murder think about eating at this time. Humans cannot live without food. Although Duan Yun was quite perverted, incessantly tempting her to perform the silk armor again to study her. She had already performed once. Yet Shining still chose to eat dinner together with Duan Yun. Just like what she said to the Murong brothers before, when she hoped to find something during the box opening, she wanted to see Duan Yun. Even though they often quarreled, sometimes even fiercely, they never found each other disagreeable. Sometimes, a little quarrel could be delightful, and they would find each other more appealing. This situation made Shan Ying suspect that there might be something wrong with the demon blade that Duan Yun practiced and started to doubt her father's originally noble character. Help! Somebody! Save me! At this time, a woman's cries for help suddenly came from outside. As a martial world young hero and an onlooker who enjoys storytelling, how could they miss such an opportunity to redress an injustice? So in the next moment, two people, each holding a bowl of rice, appeared on the rooftop. Duan Yun and Shining were eating while keeping an eye on the situation outside. The sound came from a bamboo grove in the graveyard, not far away. The next moment, a panicked female figure appeared in their view. At this time, the woman, carrying a vegetable basket, slipped and fell to the ground. Even the cucumbers in the basket scattered out. Behind the clump of bamboo where the small path was, a hunchback soon appeared. The hunchback, wielding a snake-headed cane, grinned viciously. Pretty girl, in this godforsaken place, even if you scream your throat out, no one will know. Witnessing this scene, young hero Duan's blood was already boiling. It's not just heroes who would feel this way. Even an ordinary man would get agitated seeing this. Any man, even those without fighting skills, would have fantasized countless times about being the hero who saves the damsel in distress. Unfortunately, such opportunities are rare. Even as a hero, Duan Yun had encountered many injustices but seldom had such chances. In his experiences, there were more mad women who loved to assault men. Finally encountering such a standard plot from martial heroes dramas, how could young hero Duan sit still? At this moment, the hunchback was no longer in a hurry to catch the woman. Because the woman's foot was twisted, she had already become an easy meal for him. Screaming would not help her escape. At this time, Shining saw Duan Yun laying down his bowl and couldn't help saying, "Are you thinking of playing the hero to save the beauty?" Duan Yun raised his eyebrow. "Shouldn't I?" Shining suggested, "I think you can wait a bit longer." Wait for what? If we wait any longer. Suddenly, a bizarre scene occurred. The hunchback who was originally licking his tongue and sleazily approaching suddenly stopped, turned around, and fled rapidly. Duan Yun even saw the terror in his face, as if he had seen a ghost. The next moment, the woman in the green dress who was on the ground sprang up and chased after him. "Aren't you going to eat me? Why are you running?" The woman in green laughed with a giggle. She threw the basket in her hand, which transformed into a blur, and it covered the hunchback's head. The next moment, a piercing scream sounded, as the vegetable basket mysteriously spun, splattering flesh and blood. At dusk, the scene was both thrilling and terrifying. With a clang, just in the nick of time, the hunchback used his snake-headed cane to strike, narrowly blocking the vegetable basket. But at this moment, the woman in green approached with a sweet smile. With a swish, a surge erupted from the bulge on the hunchback's back, shooting out a stream of black venom, swift and fast. Duan Yun had not anticipated that whether it was the woman in green's vegetable basket move or the hunchback's spine stab, both were deviously unpredictable, startling even Duan Yun, who was no longer a novice in the martial world. But clearly, the woman in green was more skilled. She nimbly dodged the poisoned spine, and from the sky, she covered the hunchback with her dress. In Duan Yun's and Xin Ying's view, the green dress seemed like a huge mouth, writhing for a while. Initially, the dress was bulging, clearly indicating the hunchback struggling inside. But after 2 arms and a leg flew out, there was no significant movement. The hunchback was eaten by this woman using skirt mouth? In the dimming environment, the woman standing in green was very terrifying. Xining said, "Do you still want to play the hero now?" Duan Yun couldn't help saying, "Is this a person or a ghost? Did you see it coming?" Xining looked at him and said, "Out there, they spread tales about you like you're a demon that comes once in 100 years. But probably only Murong brothers, and I know that you are truly inexperienced." "What on earth is this woman?" Duan Yun asked curiously. "Obviously, a female ghost who can behead." Saying this, Xining had already left the rooftop. At this time, the woman in green had already walked into the depths of the bamboo forest, her steps light and floaty, as if not touching the ground. As twilight was fading and the surroundings dim, Duan Yun felt she looked back at him as she left, or perhaps not. Chapter 150. Skirt's Ghost. At night, Duan Yun and Xining talked about the eerie woman they saw at dusk. Duan Yun couldn't help but ask, "Is there any explanation for the woman in the green dress? The witch Xiong Japa who bites off fingers, and the beautiful ghost who beheads people, haven't you heard of them?" Xining spoke somberly. In the night, a single light shone like a bean at Yuzhu Villa, which, paired with Shun Ying's tone, created a truly eerie atmosphere. Duan Yun knew a bit about Xiong Japa. The story was told in both Yun State and Yu State, with numerous versions, all tinged with horror. The most widely circulated version is that Xiong Japa is actually a demon that looks very much like an old human lady, fond of wearing embroidered shoes and floral scarves, disguised as an old woman. Moreover, she likes to eat the soft and tender fingers of children. The sound of chewing fingers is crisp as biting into beans, which is quite terrifying. Therefore, Xiong Japa is actually similar to Duan Yun's moniker. If a child is disobedient and won't stop crying, the adults in these 2 states often say, "Xiong Japa is coming." There are many stories about Xiong Japa. Some say it's just a highly intelligent bear. Since bears are good at imitating humans, they may fail to trick adults but can easily deceive children. While others say it's actually a creature that looks like a human. As for what Xiong Japa really is, no one can say for sure. According to Xin Ying, the beautiful ghost who beheads people is likewise shrouded in mystery. In any case, over the past few centuries, there have occasionally been bizarre cases of beheading murders. It is said that the perpetrators are often beautiful female ghosts, who look soft and fragile and easily bullied. But in a blink of an eye, they can sever your head. At dusk, what Duan Yun and Xining saw, that strange basket, was actually a tool for beheading. If that hunchback hadn't possessed his own cunning tricks, his head would probably have been cut off by now. Like Xiong Japa, there were also many stories about the beautiful ghost. Some say it's the transformation of a woman's wronged spirit, specifically seeking to sever the heads of lecherous men and heartbreakers. But in the martial world, a more widely circulated legend is that there is a ghost river in this mortal realm, where the big black sky ghost mother resides. The big black sky ghost mother loves to give birth. Her male offspring will never grow up and are called little demons, fond of plucking out the tongues of the overly talkative and eating them raw, while the female offspring can mature in a night and become beautiful ghosts, who delight in beheading people. The little demons deliver the leftover human tongues into the ghost mother's river, while what the beautiful ghosts present are human heads. There's a saying that if you encounter a river filled with human tongues and heads, then you have seen the ghost river. If the big black sky ghost mother in the river gazes upon you, no matter your gender, you will give birth to a ghostly child. Duan Yun exclaimed in surprise, "Is that the rumored stare that impregnates?" Xining nodded. "It's a bit like the trick of old demon Duan, who curses every woman he fancies to fall and be shamed. A clever coincidence of methodology." Duan Yun was speechless for a moment before saying, "So, is this beautiful ghost an actual ghost or not?" Based on his observation today, he found it difficult to imagine any woman being able to swallow a person with her dress, and that person being a hunchback with considerable skills. Yes, that hunchback placed in the martial world with that sneaky move of his would at least be a second-rate master. Sadly, he was eerily swallowed up just like that. Shining shook her head. Whether it's the big black sky ghost mother or the beautiful ghost who beheads people, just like Xiong Japa, it's hard to say for certain what they are, because those who have seen the beautiful ghost will soon become dead people. The night grew deeper, and a gust of wind made the lamp flicker. Duan Yun couldn't help but shiver and asked, "Has there ever been an exception?" "There has. In the martial world, there was a person called Skirt's Ghost, a survivor who lived after encountering a beautiful ghost. It is said that he lost 3 fingers during the encounter and rudely boasted about it, quite satisfied with the moniker Skirt's Ghost. And no one dared to underestimate him, because aside from him, there were no survivors from a beautiful ghost's hands." Shining spoke with confidence about these secrets of the martial world, while rookie Duan Yun listened with great interest. Did this person not say whether the beautiful ghost was human or a ghost?
No.
Duan Yun couldn't help saying, "The 2 of us saw the beautiful ghost at dusk. Isn't that very dangerous?" Shining pondered and said, "I remember she didn't look at me. Could it be that she looked at you?" Duan Yun recalled those details, thinking, "It's like she did look, but also like she didn't." Shining nodded and said, "Then you could try taking on a challenge." "Challenge what?" "Challenge becoming the second Skirt's ghost." "Damn it. Her glance alone is a threat to my life. This beautiful ghost holds such a grudge? Won't I have trouble sleeping tonight?" Duan Yun grumbled. At that moment, Shining warned, "Let me say this first. Don't think about using this opportunity to claim you're scared and attempt to live in the same room with me. Then try to take things even further. Don't even think about it. To think is to make a mistake." Saying that, Shining went back to her room and shut all the windows and doors. Duan Yun, damn it. The night passed without incident. Duan Yun even slept well, thanks to having Panda Dabai guard the door. Sleepy-eyed, Duan Yun woke up and, as usual, got out of bed to pee. He stepped over Big White, who was snoring at the door, sleeping soundly, and couldn't help doubting the reliability of having the panda on watch. The outhouse Duan Yun used was Yuzhu Villa's old outhouse, or rather, because Xiao Ying did not want to share an outhouse with these smelly men, she dug a new one exclusively for women, leaving this one as the men's outhouse. The men's outhouse was consistent with the style of Yuzhu Villa, featuring a rustic and casual look. Even the bamboo curtain at the entrance was something Shan Ying added because she couldn't stand it being too open when she first arrived. Right now, the bamboo curtain was pushed to one side. Duan Yun continued walking, but suddenly, he felt something was off. He clearly remembered that, after using the outhouse last night, he had put the bamboo curtain down. The Morong brothers were not around. Shining used the women's outhouse, Big White, and Little Gray always ran wild, so it could be said that he was the only one using this outhouse. Then who put up the bamboo curtain? Beautiful ghost. The first reaction in Duan Yun's mind was this, and the next instant, he felt a chilling sensation, goosebumps all over his body. The outhouse walls were worn from age, with several holes at the top, which Duan Yun and the Morong brothers jokingly called fart holes. Because the outhouse stank, the gases that came out from these holes were equally foul, just like passing gas. And at this moment, within one of those holes, an eye was staring intently at him. From this angle, the eye looked as if it was set within the hole, making it hard to imagine what state the person inside was in to squeeze their eye to this extent. Or perhaps he wasn't sure if it was a person inside at all. What exactly is the beautiful ghost? Nobody in the martial world knew. Duan Yun couldn't help but remember Shen Ying's words and secretly thought, do I really have to challenge becoming a Skirt's ghost? He silently clenched his sword finger, walking toward the bamboo curtain of the outhouse. Chapter 151. Adulterous Couple, Shameless Sneak Attack. Duan Yun squeezed his sword finger and moved closer when suddenly, the eye in the peephole twitched, and a song abruptly began to play. Little girl, getting up early in the morning, carrying pants to the latrine. There's a pervert hiding in the bathroom. He insulted her. The voice was crisp and pleasant, like that of an oriole, but in the early morning, it gave a full sense of terror. Almost simultaneously, the eye in the hole disappeared, but the singing continued. The singing was ethereal, sometimes distant and sometimes near, making it difficult to discern the direction. Duan Yun pinched his sword finger, looking inside the latrine, his expression guarded. Suddenly, as if a breeze had blown, the bamboo curtain of the latrine was lifted, revealing a slim figure in a green long skirt. The woman in the green skirt, carrying a vegetable basket, walked out looking frail and weak, and her voice seemed very easy to bully. Even though Duan Yun had seen her fish and bully others the day before, he still couldn't help but feel an urge to bully her fiercely. At this moment, the woman in the blue dress stopped singing, turned her beautiful eyes towards Duan Yun, and muttered, "Do you want to possess me?" Duan Yun shook his head and said, "No. Why? Is it not good to possess me?" The woman in the blue dress asked in tears, her expression pitiful. It seems like not possessing her would harm her. Honestly, her appearance was indeed very tempting, but Duan Yun seriously analyzed. "Miss, your tongue coating is thick and greasy, suggesting long-term indulgence leading to excessive fire in the heart and liver, possibly resulting in yellow urine, excessive foam, and even bad breath." The woman in the green skirt still had a pitiful appearance, invoking a sense of strategic planning, but upon hearing these words, she revealed a startled expression, looking at Duan Yun as if he were a freak, or even a monster. "You say I have bad breath?" the woman in the green skirt questioned. The pitiful air about her had faded a lot, replaced by a sinister and malicious aura. Duan Yun earnestly explained, "Even the most beautiful women fart, and it stinks. Your symptoms are not mild, and having a foul-smelling breath is quite reasonable. Trust me, I'm a professional doctor." "Fine. Fine. Fine." The woman in the green skirt's cheeks twitched as she repeated "fine" 3 times, seemingly at her limit. In the instant her eyes flashed fiercely, the vegetable basket in her hand had already flown towards Duan Yun. Duan Yun was already prepared, but as the vegetable basket flew through the air, seemingly not fast, it gave an unavoidable impression. Because the basket seemed to conceal several contingencies, no matter how you changed positions, it seemed to follow precisely. Since he was already targeted, Duan Yun did not hesitate. His 10 fingers trembled rapidly, unleashing Jade's sword energy as if it cost him nothing. If the odd vegetable basket possessed many trajectory changes, always managing to follow Duan Yun's head, then at this moment, Duan Yun's Jade sword energy was like a sudden rain mixed with wind, fast at times, slow at others, moving left and right, and possessing an unpredictable rhythm. The key was that the sword chi could also drive his body to move, reducing recoil, thus his movements also became difficult to predict. For a moment, both the trajectory of the vegetable basket and Duan Yun became elusive, increasing the difficulty for the basket to catch Duan Yun. The woman in the green skirt made a quick decision, her true chi buzzing inside her like ripples spreading out, causing the vegetable basket in the air to shake violently and suddenly accelerate, turning into a blur as it flew towards Duan Yun's head. Almost at the same time, Duan Yun, firing sword chi with his hands, brought his 10 fingers together, forming a net-like sword chi that he pushed upwards. Bang! The basket, spinning rapidly mid-air and shifting position, collided with the net-like sword chi. The basket was knocked high into the air by the sword chi, only to fall again. But this time its changes were significantly fewer, yet it became more forceful. Faced with a direct confrontation, Duan Yun did not flinch. He delivered an elbow strike, his elbow sword chi roaring out, while his right foot forcefully kicked, throwing his boot as the toe sword chi also shot out like lightning. Thud! Thud! Sword chi collided with the vegetable basket, the sound booming like spring thunder, buzzing incessantly. Duan Yun then realized that what seemed like a bamboo-woven basket was actually likely cast from some kind of metal. His elbow sword and toe sword chi had long been at his command, both strikes forceful and heavy, never lacking in power. Thus, the basket, bearing the weight of 1,000 loads, was instantly sent flying, crashing with a bang against the wall and roof, dragging a gray-white turbulent flow behind it. Damn! Unexpectedly to Duan Yun, as soon as the basket was sent flying, a shadow once again enveloped him. A green skirt. Duan Yun looked up to see the green skirt descending from the sky, aimed right at his body. From here, he could only see the pitch-black underside of the entire green skirt, like a gaping abyss, obscuring everything. Duan Yun could not see the old lady's underwear, and was suddenly furiously enraged. Too insincere. At that moment, instead of retreating, he charged forward, diving under the terrifying hem of the woman's skirt. This sudden change even caused the green-skirted woman's eyes to jump. Breaking body sword energy. Breaking body sword energy emanated from all over his body, like smoke and fog, blurring Duan Yun's figure. The Black Death energy melded with the sword chi, turning into an ominous ink color. In that moment, Duan Yun himself seemed to transform into a huge black sword, charging towards the green-skirted woman's undergarment. The underside of the green-skirted woman's skirt was also black, and in the blink of an eye, black collided with black. With a thud, the sound was extremely muffled. The green skirt writhed like a gaping mouth, appearing very eerie. But the next moment, the green-skirted woman let out a cry that was suddenly high and then low, unclear whether it was pain or pleasure. With a ripping sound, her skirt tore open a large piece, and Duan Yun, who had been swallowed, fell out from the opening, blood spraying and white smoke rising from half of his body. Meanwhile, the green-skirted woman somersaulted and flew out of the wall. At that moment, a figure swept from the side, leaving a trail of afterimages, and collided with the green-skirted woman. Shining! With a bang, accompanied by the sound of flesh and bone splintering, Shuning kicked out her long leg with gathered strength, like firing a shell, hitting the green-skirted woman's waist. Thus, in an instant, the green-skirted woman's body seemed to snap in half, struck into a less-than-sign shape. The woman's body, like a shell, was kicked flying, the powerful wind howling, leaving a human-shaped hole in the wall. Shuning, successful with one kick, stepped on air, creating ripple-like airwaves, then accelerated her fall, like a meteor, preparing to deliver a second savage blow to the green-skirted woman. In terms of direct confrontation or single combat, she was no match for Duan Yun, one of the dual masters of sword and saber. However, when it came to sneaking attacks, seizing opportunities, and delivering final fatal blows, Duan Yun was inferior to her. But at that moment, Shun Ying's plummeting body suddenly swept up in mid-air. With a swoosh, suddenly, a large jet of dark blood wave sprayed from underneath the green-skirted woman's skirt, sinister beyond measure. With a smack, the blood wave struck the wall, which immediately eroded, emitting countless bubbles and steaming black smoke. And by then, the green-skirted woman had already disappeared into the forest outside. Shanning turned, only to see 2 rows of bloody characters on the corroded wall. Adulterous rascals, shameless ambushers, under the ghost mother, we shall come for your lives. At this moment, adulterous rascal, Duan Yun had hurried over, looked at the characters and said, "Adulterous rascals?" Shun Ying's face flushed, saying, "Who's being adulterous with you?" Duan Yun, looking confused, "Isn't that what I read from the characters? Even reading is wrong. Reading is also a mistake." Duan Yun, the situation with shadowing is really getting more severe. Chapter 152. The brothers return? The beautiful ghost had already fled, and Yuzhu Villa returned to normal in the early morning. Yet Duan Yun and Shining were still talking about the recent events. "Why do you like going under women's skirts so much?" Shining teased. Instead of admitting it, Duan Yun retorted, "Do you call that liking? Her skirt just draped itself over my head. I thought her skirt was the most terrifying, so I had to use strength to overcome strength, to show the true nature of a strong person. Now, I guess I can consider myself an underskirt ghost, right?" Duan Yun said, quite pleased with himself. After all, not only did he survive beneath the beautiful ghost's skirt, but he also didn't lose a finger. It's not necessarily the case, Shining pondered. Why isn't it certain? Duan Yun asked, puzzled. Don't be so naive. It's common for people in the martial world to impersonate celebrities. Why couldn't this beautiful ghost be someone else in disguise? Shining explained. You've got a point. Just like how many false accusations are pinned on me, maybe someone is impersonating me and committing evil deeds. That's really detestable. Duan Yun reflected. So, what did you see down there? Shining inquired. Last night, they had seen with their own eyes the skirt devour someone, and anyone who could escape from her and Duan Yun's grasp, even if not the real beautiful ghost, must be a wicked and skilled expert. Hence, Shining couldn't help but be curious. Duan Yun shook his head. It was pitch dark inside. I couldn't see even a hair. I felt like there was a big mouth and it seemed like there were hands and feet. At that time, I could only stab wildly. Shining looked disgusted and said, You're so perverted, always thinking about going under skirts to look at other people's hair. Saying that, she clamped her legs together, ready to guard herself. Duan Yun. At this point, he couldn't help but look at Shining and say, Let's not talk about whether you'll bow your head or whether there's hair. I stabbed her so badly, and you didn't manage to capture her. If you did, couldn't we have studied the secret beneath her skirt? Not my fault you made her bleed with your stabs. If her skirt hadn't gone crazy spilling blood, would I have not caught her? Shining argued back. This was the kind of conversation you could hear at Yuju Villa in the early morning. If other people from the martial world heard them, they'd definitely think they were a pair of lunatics. Martial world people, upon hearing the words beautiful ghost, would be scared half to death already, because encountering the red building fairy might get you drained of your vital essence, yet leave you alive. But encountering the beautiful ghost, there was no chance. After all, over the years, there has been only one underskirt ghost. Take that hunchbacked man, who was quite skilled in the martial world. As soon as he realized something was off, he opted to flee. Although he failed to escape, it at least showed respect for the fearsome reputation of Ghost Mother's ghosts. Yet the two people in this villa were arguing about not having captured the beautiful ghost for research. I dug such a big cellar. How could there be no space? Duan Yun couldn't help but say. He had been digging the cellar for several days, and there still weren't any permanent residents, which somewhat disappointed the doctor. Not long after the two had breakfast, they started to repair the wall. The blood-written warning under Ghost Mother's orders, will come to take lives, was actually quite scary on the wall. But Duan Yun and Shining were both quite fearless and didn't care much about it. After all, one was a young hero full of heroic spirit, and the other a boxer who had practiced the 9-death silkworm and died several times. With these two mixing together, even becoming the adulterous couple, that even the beautiful ghost couldn't stand, how could they be too scared? At the moment, Duan Yun even said fiercely, Next time, I will definitely catch one alive. Once I interrogate them and find out their lair, this young hero will wipe out their whole clan for messing around with ghost tricks. Looking at his heroic spirit, and listening to his heroic spirit talk, Shining had no energy left to retort. It was no wonder this guy was mistaken for a demon. Martial arts experts repairing the wall with the finesse of an illicit couple's harmony. Their efficiency was surprisingly high. Within less than half an hour, the wall that had been knocked open was mended, and Shining even carved an elegant orchid stone window on it. Actually, although Duan Yun and Shining were a bit scared when the beautiful ghost came knocking, they also quite liked the feeling. What they felt even more was excitement. After all, a young hero with heroic spirit and a doctor with a compassionate heart, if they didn't deal with an evil demon now and then, and without having a couple of patients locked in the cellar, it felt somewhat empty. And here she was, a bona fide pugilist. Though she appeared delicate and acted ladylike, she also got uncomfortable if she didn't throw punches after a while. There is a saying, a small killing refreshes the spirit, a great killing strengthens the body. That's what it means. At dinner time, Duan Yun couldn't help but bring up the Murong brothers again, wondering. Murong hasn't come back for so long. Could he have been captivated by his sister? Shining also showed a puzzled expression and said, he left full of confidence, looking quite sure of himself. Duan Yun nodded and said, right, he learned my swordsmanship. If he still gets caught by his sister, it would be a real loss of face for me, young hero Duan. Both of them knew that Murong was mysteriously confident about his own looks, but when it came to his martial arts, he definitely wasn't as confident as Duan Yun. His daring to go out and find that sister usually indicated that he felt quite confident in succeeding. But Duan Yun had slain Zhu Haimian, casually relieved a disaster in Yu State, killed the infiltrating White Sox sect, and even specifically went out to have hot pot. He had been involved in so many things and yet came back, whereas there was still no news from Murong, which really was puzzling. Don't let it happen that we have to rescue him from his sister's clutches later on, Duan Yun complained. Shining said, maybe that will be in the next few days. Well, it's not bad if he doesn't come back either, said Duan Yun. At this moment, Shining suddenly became cautious and asked, did you deliberately tell him that? Duan Yun was somewhat confused and asked, tell him what? Did you tell him to come back late, so as to spend time alone with me? Let me tell you, until our relationship is clear, I won't let you succeed, Shining said with a serious face. Duan Yun. After a moment of silence, Duan Yun stood up and said, come on. Follow me to the cellar. Shining jumped back a good 20 feet away, nervously saying, the cellar? Did you want to do that since the first moment you saw me? This time, Duan Yun really couldn't help it. Looking at Shun Ying seriously, he said, do you know that overthinking is also a kind of sickness? Let me give you a proper treatment. Shining nervously asked, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to synchronize our thoughts and make me shiver uncontrollably with your treatment? You're so perverted, she said. With that, her entire body tensed up, like a menacing rubber band that, with a mere touch, would lash out with countless ferocious punches in retaliation. Even Duan Yun, faced with such a Shining, had to proceed with caution. Just as this man and woman were about to come to blows, suddenly, there was a knock at the door from outside. Both of them looked towards the outside with confusion. Who else would come here at this late hour? Could it be that Murong had returned? Chapter 153. Lady, if you dare to hit me, you will regret it. The night at Yuzhu Villa was marked by a knock on the door, a rather rare occurrence. After all, it was a manor located under the graveyard, which appeared haunted, and the manor master Murong brother was there to hide from his sister, usually seeing no guests, so naturally few people would inquire. The last time someone knocked in the middle of the night for a visit was during summer, and it was Fu Wanjun, the white-haired witch previously treated by Duan Yun. Who could it be this time? Although Duan Yun and Shen Ying's first reaction was Murong brother, they quickly realized it couldn't be him. Who would knock so politely on their own house? Shining looked at Duan Yun and said, you go open the door. Duan Yun objected, why should it be me? Because I made dinner. Shining countered with hands on her hips, her tone bold and confident. Duan Yun found her reasoning sound, and so he went to open the door. With a creak, the old wooden door barely opened when Duan Yun instinctively stepped back. Two girls stood at the door, one dressed in green and the other in white, their ages indiscernible. The reason their ages were unclear was that, according to their appearances and figures, they seemed like young girls yet to mature, but their chest areas were unusually pronounced. Duan Yun was momentarily dazzled. The two girls held a red carpet, laying it from the doorway into the courtyard. Then one of them somersaulted into the air, retreating to the outside of the house. Throughout this, although Duan Yun watched them intently, they did not even glance at him, as if Duan Yun did not exist at all. Could these two girls be blind? Indeed, it was strange for them to not look at him, a man of his handsome appearance. But he didn't pay too much attention to this, for though the girls were pretty and wore exquisite clothes, their behavior suggested they might be maidservants of someone. After the girls withdrew, suddenly two balls rolled up. These balls rolled along the edges of the red carpet toward the depths of the courtyard, then suddenly stretched out, revealing two tall, graceful beauties. The beauties were barefoot, each carrying a basket. The next moment, Petals from the baskets fluttered out, seemingly casual but all aimed precisely along the edges of the red carpet, turning it into a floral tapestry. Their wrist control in scattering the petals was truly astounding. Duan-Yun was utterly entranced, not only because these two barefoot beauties were indeed beautiful and skilled, but also because their actions were akin to flower girls. If the flower girls had such skills, what about their master? At that moment, after the scattering of petals, the two barefoot beauties gracefully drifted back as if they were ethereal fairies. Tonight's spectacle was indeed more delightful than a theater play. Yet Duan-Yun and Shun-Ing knew well that as long as the master hadn't appeared, the climax of this grand drama had not yet arrived. The next instant, strains of string and woodwind music suddenly rose. Two women dressed like barbarians, their hair braided into many plaits swinging with their heads, could conjure sounds of various instruments with their bare mouths, showcasing remarkable inner breath control and oral skills. Could be said that each woman was an entire band. The key point was, they were beauties, beauties with an exotic charm. Outside the dark entrance of Yuju Villa appeared like a magical box, hiding who knows how many uniquely skilled individuals. Then, Duan-Yun and Shun-Ing suddenly heard a noise and looked up. In the dark sky, four lanterns lit up. The lanterns fell closer and closer, until they neared Yuju Villa, whereupon the pair could see they were four elegant palace lanterns. The lanterns were held by four masked women, their faces hidden, and exuding an airy fairy-like aura. Their Qinggong skills alone could compare with the Red House fairies famous in the martial world for their light body skills. Their posture and movement technique might be fairy-like, but what they did was not quite so, because each masked woman had a wooden post on her shoulder. They were carrying a large couch, slowly descending from the air. Yes, they were essentially palanquin bearers. The couch was veiled with light purple gauze which, as the wind blew, revealed the figures of two women inside it. The previously appeared maidservants, flower girls, musicians, and palanquin bearers were all unmatched beauties. But as the gauze fluttered, they were instantly overshadowed. On the couch on the right was a young maiden dressed in a long gauzy dress adorned with vibrant blooming flowers, her presence even more radiant than the flowers themselves. On the left was an elegantly dressed lady in a purple robe, who, though she merely sat casually, inexplicably drew attention. Duan-Yun recalled a song lyric from his past life. My sister says purple has a charm, and now he thought, my sister was right. He had never seen such a charming lady. The next moment, the girl on the right moved. Her skirt's flowers flowed enticingly. She looked at Duan-Yun angrily and said, Mother, last time it was he who hurt my bottom. Duan-Yun showed a confused expression. Then noticing her flower branch sword almost blending with her floral skirt, he realized. This is Feng Linger, Murong brother's sister. Last time the battle was too abrupt and his opponent's red face sword was dazzling. He only remembered that his toe sword pierced through the opponent's buttocks, but he didn't belittle her appearance. Now the opponent brought their parents to his door, and the main culprit, Murong brothers, was not there. How embarrassing. Am I supposed to take the blame? Duan-Yun quickly said, Junior sister lady, this was all a misunderstanding. Then, the lady in the purple robe subtly moved, and a 3-foot-long jade smoking pipe appeared in her hand. She gently blew out a puff of smoke, which wound around her, dreamlike and elusive. Feng Linger's mother looked through the smoke at Duan-Yun and spoke faintly. My daughter rarely gets bullied. If you can withstand my move and still live, we'll consider the matter settled. Her voice was equally captivating and melodious, giving one the feeling of lingering music. As her voice fell, the smoke that had been floating in front of her suddenly stilled, as if materialized. At that moment, Shun-Ying's complexion changed slightly, but Duan-Yun took a step forward and said, Lady, I have clarified this as a misunderstanding, but since you wish to teach me a lesson, let's raise the stakes. What wager? If I can withstand your move and still have strength left, I might just shoot through your buttocks as well. I don't like being hit passively, Duan-Yun said seriously. How dare you? Do you really think you can withstand a move from my mother?
Feng Linger shouted angrily.
In that instant, Everyone present changed their expressions, except for Duan Yun and the lady in the purple robe. They looked at each other, motionless. The air seemed to freeze, and the originally spacious courtyard suddenly felt very oppressive. Xin Ying's forehead and back were already sweating coldly. A gust of wind stirred the previously frozen smoke, and the lady in the purple robe smiled cunningly and said, "Interesting, Linger, being hit by your sword is no injustice." As she spoke, the smoke had already dispersed, and the terrifying aura of sternness also vanished. Seeing this, Feng Linger complained, "Mother, why didn't you teach him a lesson?" The lady in purple shook her head and said, "I promised to deal with the Morong brothers for you, but I didn't agree to go after him. You got hit by his sword. Figure out how to get back at him yourself." "Mother!" Hearing her mother's words, Feng Linger was almost driven mad. At this moment, the lady in purple looked at Duan Yun and Xin Ying and asked, "Are you friends with that rascal from the Morong family?" Duan Yun responded decisively, "We are hardly acquainted with Morong brothers. At best, we are his tenants." The lady in purple nodded and said, "Very well, we only plan to wait for him here. Sorry to disturb you, and here's the rent." Then, the flower girl that was previously scattering flowers came forward with a flower basket and respectfully placed it in front of Duan Yun. Afterward, the group headed towards the backyard, looking like they intended to stay. Luckily, Yuzhu Villa was big, and in the dark night, the group of sudden visitors quickly disappeared from sight. Duan Yun looked down at the flower basket, which suddenly seemed very glaring to him, because it was a basket full of gold. Young hero Duan was already in a good mood, and now it was even better. Only then did Xin Ying finally breathe a sigh of relief. Seeing this, Duan Yun said, "You seem very tense." "Of course I am tense. Do you know who you were facing just now?" Xin Ying retorted. "Who? If she is Morong brother's mother, doesn't that make her Morong's stepmother?" Duan Yun speculated. Xin Ying lowered her voice. "Keep your voice down. Contending with anyone from the Purple Garment Dragon King spells doom, whether they're righteous or evil." Purple Garment Dragon King? Duan Yun raised his eyebrows. He was a rookie in the martial world, unaware of the renowned masters, but a woman called Purple Garment Dragon King was definitely not someone to provoke. Just her demeanor alone truly pressured Duan Yun. After all, whether they were maids, flower girls, or porters, placing them in the martial world meant they were top-notch masters. Yet they willingly served this woman, which shows her extraordinary means. When that smoke solidified momentarily, Duan Yun's body also got goosebumps. It was his body's instinctual warning of danger. But he, Duan Yun, young hero Duan, a one-of-a-kind cultivation genius, who has he ever feared? Regardless of anyone, Purple Garment or Red Garment Dragon King, if they dared to mess with him, he dared to shoot through their buttocks. Young hero Duan was famed for his counterstrikes. Seeing the look on Shen Ying's face, Duan Yun couldn't help but say, "Are you worried that she might beat me badly?" Shen Ying shook her head. "Not entirely." At that moment, while she was worried Duan Yun might get beaten brutally by the Purple Garment Dragon King, she was also worried that the Purple Garment Dragon King might get shot in the buttocks by Duan Yun. Yes, if anyone talked about such a scenario in the martial world, it would be considered a huge joke. Even the most fanciful storyteller wouldn't dare to fabricate such a tale. But this young man's surname was Duan, given name Yun, known as the young hero, and that was unpredictable. Because he was precisely the old demon Duan, currently the hottest topic among the storytellers. Like the Morong brothers, Shen Ying always felt that this guy had a magical power, a maverick power making the improbable possible. Old demon Duan should never be judged by conventional wisdom. Chapter 154. A peerless beauty, a sensational dance. The Purple Dragon King and his daughter, the flower fanatic Feng Linger, settled down in Yuzhu Villa. They stayed on the western side, which was the most dilapidated part of Yuzhu Villa, the part even Duan Yun and Xin Ying shunned. These two women, who normally insisted on having red carpets and flower petals spread before them just to sit on the ground, ended up residing in such a rundown room. During the night, the western area of Yuzhu Villa was silent, not much different than usual. But the thought of all those beauties there, one of whom was ill, made Duan Yun somewhat restless. Feng Linger, the sister of the Murong brothers, was the very patient that the Murong brothers had designated. Their western area was not far from his cellar. It was a pity that even the usually daring Duan Yun found it inappropriate to make a move on a daughter in front of her mother. Besides, the flower fanatic's mother was definitely not someone to mess with. Seeing Duan Yun glance over there from time to time, Xining erupted in anger, unable to hold back her sneer. "Stop looking. Your eyes are about to pop out." Duan Yun pondered seriously. What kind of person is the Purple Dragon King after all? Does she like to play with water? Xining looked at Duan Yun as if he were a pervert. Why do you care so much about someone else's grown-up daughter? I didn't expect you to be such a sick pervert, Shadow. With that, she walked off. Duan Yun stood there, baffled, and said, I'm just a newbie here, unaware of the senior's past, just asking a question. Why don't you ask someone else then? Shadow. With that, there was a clanging sound as doors and windows shut. Duan Yun stood there, blinking his eyes. Family who understands being called Shadow by a shadow woman in the middle of the night. In the morning, Duan Yun woke up to the rich scent of cooking. His first thought was tomato beef brisket, cooked very fragrantly. Shadow Ying was indeed splurging, having such a nice breakfast. But when he eagerly got out of bed, he found only greens and tofu with a dish of sauerkraut, and the aroma drifted over from the west. No need to think twice, he knew the scent belonged to Feng Linger's place. Xining looked at him and said, Are you really eager to go over there? Duan Yun hastily picked up his watery rice and began to eat, saying, I'm definitely not thinking of going there. At that moment, a fragrant breeze wafted in the doorway. Last night's Jade-Foot flower girl appeared at the door, respectfully saying, The lady says it is an intrusion on both of you, inviting you two over for a meal. Duan Yun excitedly stood up, but then sat down again at the sight of Shen Ying's scowling face. He said, We're already eating. Please convey to the lady it's unnecessary to trouble herself on our behalf. The Jade-Foot flower girl was about to leave, but then Xining stood up and said, Please tell the lady we will freshen up and we'll be right over. Very well. The Jade girl stood aside, waiting with respect. Duan Yun looked at Xining with a puzzled expression. This woman's thoughts are truly... Xining glared at him and said, What are you looking at me for? Only an idiot would pass up good food. Besides, if we don't go, I'm sure someone would be itching with anxiety. Duan Yun quickly got busy, tidying himself up. After they were ready, they followed the flower girl toward the western residence. Before they even arrived, the delicate fragrance of gardenia flowers slowly wafted toward them. To think, in this season on the verge of early winter, when the spring flowers had long turned to mud and the winter plum blossoms were yet to appear, it was hard to smell any fragrance of flowers, let alone the springtime scent of gardenias. But when Duan Yun and Xining reached the formerly most dilapidated west residence, they were both stunned for a moment. Duan Yun even stepped back to look again, assuring himself that it was indeed the same wall. Now the western residence, blooming with gardenias and exuding a fresh floral scent, had transformed the entire place into something unfamiliar, deeply unfamiliar. The ragged walls had become smooth and clean, the floor tiles seemed to have been polished, exuding a jade-like sheen, and the previously hole-ridden doors and windows were totally renewed, some even with gold and jade borders. Palace lanterns dotted the ground, branches trembling in the breeze, making Duan Yun and Xining feel as though they had entered a dream. Just overnight, they could have believed this place was the imperial palace. Before, Duan Yun had thought these two women seemed quite aloof, somewhat germophobic, wondering how they could get used to such a shabby house. Who would have thought there was no need to get used to it, it was only them who lived in a shabby house. Inside the room, the lady in purple and Feng Linger in a flowered dress sat there, making the room brighten as if bathed in spring light. Please come in. The Purple Dragon King beckoned. Duan Yun and Xining entered. The table was set with 7 dishes and 1 soup, the centerpiece being the tomato beef brisket that Duan Yun had smelled earlier. Upon seeing this dish, Duan Yun sat down unceremoniously. Feng Linger sat opposite him, her face showing dissatisfaction. No one likes to be shot in the buttocks, especially a woman as proud as she is. This time, she had come with her mother primarily to settle accounts with the Murong brothers, but Duan Yun's sword had also left a mark she could not forget. Unfortunately, her mother did not take action to teach him a lesson, and though she wanted to make up for it herself, she dared not. Just like the first time she encountered this guy, she casually displayed her power, wanting to torment him, thinking he was just a tool to make the Murong brothers suffer. But in the end, it was her own behind that blossomed in pain. Especially just after her behind was pierced through. Her hatred for Duan Yun even surpassed that for the Murong brothers. Duan Yun, on the other hand, didn't care about her, because all he had eyes for was the beef. At the large dining table with only 4 people, Duan Yun really didn't hold back, eating half of the tomato braised brisket by himself. One has to admit, the cooking of this dish was just perfect. The brisket was cooked just right, with the tender beef mixed with elastic tendons, blended with the rich tomato sauce, giving a burst of flavor. The rest of the dishes were naturally exquisite as well. The purple-robed Dragon King kept smiling as she watched him eat, seemingly in a good mood. After the meal, Duan Yun and Shen Ying left. Shen Ying wanted to mock him for being inexperienced, but then she thought about it. This guy really wasn't worldly, and she hadn't really prepared beef for him usually, so it did not seem right to mock him. After Duan Yun and Shen Ying left, only the purple-robed Dragon King and Feng Linger remained in the room. The purple-robed Dragon King slightly parted her red lips and asked, "Linger, what do you think of him? Who are you talking about?"
Feng Linger asked, puzzled.
"Of course, the one you've been glaring at all morning," said the purple-robed Dragon King slowly. "Him. Despicable. Shameless. To actually have the face to come here for a meal." As she spoke, Feng Linger's prominent chest heaved with anger, indicating how furious she was. If it weren't for the fact that this guy was somewhat pleasing to the eye, which diminished her anger slightly, she would probably have already smashed a bowl of rice on the head of this villain who had injured her behind. She really couldn't understand why her mother would invite this guy for a meal, nor why he actually had the gall to show up. The whole situation seemed so absurd. A strange man pierced through your behind, and when you and your mother encountered him, not only did she not deal with him, but she also invited him to share a meal, and he actually came. The more she thought about it, the more something felt off. It was then that the purple-robed Dragon King said, "How do you think he compares to the Murong brothers? Just as despicable, just as hateful. Compared to them, he is even worse. Who targets a woman's behind like that?" Feng Linger said unrestrainedly. Yet at that moment, the purple-robed Dragon King actually smiled slightly and said, "Good." The purple-robed Dragon King and Feng Linger settled down in Yuzhu Villa, and apart from that one breakfast, there were no other interactions. The purple-robed Dragon King brought a number of servants and did not appear in front of Duan Yun and Shen Ying again. In fact, both parties were waiting for someone. A key person. The Murong brothers. Shen Ying couldn't help but mock. If the Murong brothers knew you claimed not to be close to him, they would surely be hopping mad and hit you. Duan Yun said, "That's just a temporary excuse. Who asked for his sister and stepmother to be so difficult to provoke?" At night, after Duan Yun absorbed moonlight in the courtyard and was about to go to sleep, he discovered that there was a multicolored glow at the graveyard side. He couldn't help but wonder curiously, "What is that?" Shen Ying, after brushing her teeth, came over and seeing this scene, said, "Doesn't it look like the glow of jewels?" "Jewels? Let's go. Quick! Let's go take a look." Duan Yun dashed off without a pause. Before he, Shen Ying, and the Murong brothers joked that with so many people buried here, the feng shui must be exceptionally good. Perhaps there was a grand tomb beneath, filled with countless treasures. At the time, both Shen Ying and the Murong brothers thought he was going crazy for money, but now it seemed it might be true. Shen Ying employed her movement technique and trailed behind, feeling it was outrageous. The graveyard, much like a chaotic burial hill, was filled with the remains of penniless and powerless common folks. Some didn't even have a coffin. How could there be any jewels? Atop the graveyard, The two rapidly moved among the black bamboo and quickly approached. Afterward, Shining saw something even more absurd than jewels coming to life. A series of glazed lamps formed a circle, emitting multicolored lights. And right in the center of the multicolored lights, the purple-robed Dragon King, Feng Linger's mother, was dancing atop the grave mounds. Next to the glazed lamps, those two barbarian girl musicians from before were also continuously playing, accompanying their master, the purple-robed Dragon King, in her graveyard dance. Seeing this scene, both Duan Yun and Shining were dumbfounded. This was more astonishing than suddenly discovering a pile of treasures on the dilapidated graveyard. In the dead of night, the bewitching and peerless purple-robed Dragon King was actually dancing on a grave? Could this be some sort of ghost-dispelling ceremony? The dark night, the black bamboo standing like specters, the colorful glazed lamplights, and the dance of the beautiful purple-robed woman, all made up a bizarre and outlandish scene. Having been in the martial world for so long, Duan Yun thought he had grown accustomed to its absurdities and oddities. But the scene before him still took him by surprise, primarily because of the enthralling visage of the lady in purple robes. He felt like he was witnessing a ludicrous dream. Which renowned, enchanting beauty would do such a thing? He and Shining pinched each other to confirm that they were not dreaming. At that moment, Duan Yun saw Feng Linger. She was standing quietly under a clump of black bamboo, silently watching everything her mother was doing, her eyes slightly reddened. What in the world was going on? Chapter 155. Since the lady is ill, I will not hold back then. On the graveyard, the lady in a purple dress danced wildly. Her whole body exuded a strong rhythm, swaying with her flowing hair, very rhythmical. Watching the light emitted from the glazed lamp, Duan Yun felt a sense of trance. It was like seeing a well-bred lady in broad daylight, beautiful and dignified. Then at night, you pass by a bar for a drink and find her there, heavily made up in a spaghetti-strap dress, lost in dancing. Of course, even though she danced somewhat forgetfully, the lady in the purple dress was still beautiful. Or rather, perhaps only a woman like her could make dancing on a graveyard so rhythmic. The lady wasn't wearing shoes. Under her slender jade legs, the graveyard was flattened, emitting dust and smoke. Not to mention Duan Yun, even the worldly Shining was somewhat stunned. Could this be a peculiar hobby of the purple-dressed Dragon King? Suddenly, the playing of the barbarian girls stopped. The fire in the glazed lamp flickered, extinguishing several lights. The purple-dressed Dragon King stood there, breathing heavily. Through the wavering light, one could see sweat beads covering her forehead. The surroundings suddenly became very quiet, as if only her enticing panting remained. All of a sudden, the lights in the glazed lamp completely extinguished. Duan Yun and Shining only felt a purple shadow moving. Both retreated simultaneously. But by then, the purple-dressed Dragon King was already standing in front of them. She was naturally tall and leggy. Duan Yun estimated about 1.8 cup. Now, she stood on the slope above, creating an imposing presence as if overseeing the world. Looking up, Duan Yun faced her, feeling like he was facing an insurmountable peak. What intensified the pressure on Duan Yun and Shining was her expression. The purple-dressed Dragon King's beautiful eyes were somewhat vacant, even a bit of blood red appearing in her pupils, giving a demonic sense. At this moment, she looked at Duan Yun and panted, "Hit me!" Ah! Duan Yun was baffled. "I said hit me." The purple-dressed Dragon King's voice changed somewhat. "Hurry! If you don't, I'll hit you. Do you not say you like to counterattack? Must you force me to strike you?" The purple-dressed Dragon King pressed step by step. Duan Yun rarely heard anyone make this kind of request before, the last time being the demon monk from Dusk Temple who had ended up torn into pieces. "Lady, then I won't be polite." Though Duan Yun wasn't used to hitting women, he never minded hitting them. In the martial world, women are frightening. Not hitting them properly is simply disrespectful. "Come." The purple-dressed Dragon King's eyes red with desire, looking very eager. "Jade sword finger." Duan Yun raised his hand, for streams of jade sword finger shot out like the moonlight, smoothly shooting forth. The purple-dressed dragon king thrust forward, unexpectedly neither dodging nor avoiding. Clack, 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 clack. The jade sword finger true chi, capable of easily piercing human flesh, hit her purple dress and dispersed like ripples. It didn't even manage to rip the clothes? Is that all the strength you have? The purple-dressed dragon king, with a dominant air and even more reddened eyes, questioned. Being a man, especially a young hero filled with a heroic spirit, how could one be told they lacked strength? Especially by a woman. Suddenly, Duan Yun's robe vibrated without wind, creating ripple-like waves, black death energy coiling around his waistband. Standing beside, Shuning sensed something unusual and leaped to the side. Body-breaking sword chi. Come out. Countless fine sword chi emerged from the body, like smoke and mist, instantly merging with the black death energy. The jarring buzzing sound followed, resembling a vast swarm of bees flying, making one's ears ache. Come. The purple-dressed dragon king said eagerly. With a swish, the black body-breaking sword chi formed a pillar and thrust at the purple-dressed dragon king. Faced with the terrifying momentum of the body-breaking sword chi, the purple-dressed dragon king still did not dodge or evade, standing there. With a loud bang, the air in front of the purple-dressed dragon king twisted and deformed, the black sword chi striking it, rolling with energy waves. At this moment, Duan Yun fully realized that something was wrong with the air in front of this woman. It was like a peculiar vortex, capable of dissolving sword chi. His previous jade sword finger sword energy had been dissolved like this. But my death energy body-breaking sword chi isn't an inconvenient thing. Stab for me. With a boom, the body-breaking sword chi and death energy overflowing from his body surged. The sword pillar thickening and turning darker, stabbing more ferociously at the purple-dressed dragon king. In just an instant, the sweat beads on the forehead of the purple-dressed dragon king had been shaken into fragments. Her naked feet suddenly left the ground, and she was blasted backwards. To outsiders, her figure was now covered by the body-breaking sword chi, becoming a blur. If it were an ordinary master faced with this move, they would have been pierced by the body-breaking sword chi, flesh torn and bones perforated. However, the purple-dressed dragon king evidently could not be judged by normal standards. Duan Yun could feel that he hadn't breached her defense. The chi force formed in front of this woman was like a vortex that could devour anything, and her entire body was like a bigger vortex, capable of swallowing everything. Little you, come out. Duan Yun raised his hand, and the netherworld jade sword immortal Dharma image appeared, possessing a cold demeanor like the lady in the purple dress, looking down on all. With his right hand, the body-breaking sword chi suddenly surged, forming a larger sword pillar to stab people, while Duan Yun's left hand had already grasped the knife handle. Sevenfold spring rain. Damn it! Sevenfold spring rain.
No.
8 layers. 8 layers of spring rain spin. Damn it! Damn it, they're spinning. Duan Yun did not expect this woman in purple to be so resilient, actually managing to withstand his breaking body sword pillar, making him excited as well. With a loud boom where the breaking body sword pillar passed, a huge trench formed on the graveyard, and at the end of the trench the purple figure blurred, as if it was about to be completely swallowed by the pervasive black sword chi. But Duan Yun knew she was still there. The gentle knife bore heavy, overlapping shadows, resembling the ripples of spring rain falling upon the surface of a lake, and little Yu's knife movements had also taken shape. 8 layers of spring rain. With another loud boom, the breaking body sword energy continued to surge wildly, and amidst the chaos, the bell-like sound of the knife already resonated. The knife energy of 6 layers of spring rain and 2 layers combined perfectly, like a sudden arrival of spring thunder, stirring up endless ripples. Quick! Run! Feng Linger, who was already hiding far away, continued to move aside. Under the barrage of the sword pillar, the 8 layers of spring rain rolled towards the purple dragon king. For a moment, the knife energy and the sword energy combined, striking like storm and thunder. The grave piles exploded into powder, black bamboos burst open, and half of the graveyard trembled. Crack, crack, crack. The sleeves and skirt of the purple dragon king tore apart, revealing fair skin. At this moment, Duan Yun, leveraging the knife and sword energy, leaped up and excitedly roared, "Lady, even more powerful strikes to come. Love. No. Enough." Duan Yun had not yet spoken the word limit when the purple dragon king interrupted. Duan Yun put away his knife and fell from the sky. The surrounding dust continued to spread, and after a moment, as the dust settled, the figure of the purple dragon king was revealed. She stood there, dignified in manner, and even with torn sleeves and skirt, she still appeared impeccable. She had returned to her previous dignified and luxurious appearance, as if the previous scene of her dancing on the graveyard and her eyes turning blood red was just an illusion. What surprised Duan Yun the most was that, under his combined attack of breaking body sword pillar and 8 layers of spring rain, the opponent only had her clothes shredded, still fair and delicate, utterly spotless. That's right, not even a slightly significant tearing of clothes was achieved. She just stood there, literally withstanding his combined knife and sword. This kind of situation, Duan Yun was encountering for the first time. The purple dragon king looked at Duan Yun, showing a gentle and charming smile, and said, "You are not bad." Saying this, her figure fluttered, vanishing like a wisp of purple smoke from the graveyard. Duan Yun exhaled deeply and puzzledly said, "Was that strength enough?" The previously disrupted graveyard regained its tranquility. Everything that happened seemed like a dream. Suddenly dancing on the grave, suddenly her pupils turning red, allowing Duan Yun to attack her. The purple dragon king suddenly returned to normal, truly giving a sense of mystification. Duan Yun even had an illusion that the purple dragon seemed ill just moments ago, and under his strong attack of sword energy and knife energy, she suddenly recovered. He actually still had the flirtatious finger strength and jade finger heaven techniques which he hadn't fully used to entertain the lady. Unfortunately, tonight he actually had a great time stabbing. Opponents like the purple robe dragon king, who could withstand his united sword and knife yet remain unscathed, are incredibly rare. It's extremely rare indeed. At this moment, Duan Yun saw Feng Linger and couldn't help asking, "What just happened to your mother?" Feng Linger looked at him, her eyes still held resentment as if pierced by nails, but they had changed somewhat. The fact that this guy could have such combat power and leave her mother in such a state was truly beyond her expectations. She looked at Duan Yun, her eyes still somewhat red, and said, "Actually, my mother is ill." Ill? Being a gynecologist with a medical practitioner's compassionate heart, Duan Yun suddenly became interested. "I shouldn't have let her come," Feng Linger said sadly. Duan Yun and Xin Ying returned to Yuzhu Villa, still amazed by the secret they had learned. Xin Ying had known long ago that the purple robe dragon king was the young lady of the Nangong family, named Nangong Shuya. The Nangong family is a historically long-standing martial arts family, and was once the overlord of Liezhou. Nangong Shuya is the most talented person in the Nangong family in nearly a century, a 1-in-a-million cultivation prodigy, who learned the Nangong family's unique skill, sky-clearing hand, at the age of 5, and became renowned in the martial world by 12. Coupled with her fame as a beauty, she was truly an extraordinarily talented and beautiful young woman. However, when she was 24, she encountered her most troublesome opponent, Jade Guanyin. Nangong Shuya had long disliked Jade Guanyin, and at 24, she was at her peak, rarely meeting any rival. Coincidentally, she encountered Jade Guanyin. The two peerless beauties, disliking each other, naturally could not avoid this competition. Nangong Shuya was astoundingly talented, but faced with the even more cunning and ruthless Jade Guanyin, she ultimately lost by one move. Although she survived, she was poisoned by Jade Guanyin. This poison was incurable by anyone in the world, yet Nangong Shuya, as one of the most gifted women of her time, managed to cultivate a unique skill on her own and neutralize the poison. However, it's unknown whether the toxin was not completely cleared, or if that mysterious unique skill inherently had issues, or maybe Nangong Shuya made a mistake in her cultivation, which led her to suffer from a strange illness. That is, she couldn't stand the sight of graveyards. Seeing graveyards and thinking of the dead inside, she couldn't help but dance on them, otherwise she felt she would be dragged into the grave. Then, after dancing, she would feel the urge to be beaten. If not beaten, she would go mad. Initially, she could only alleviate this madness through brutal self-harm. Later, she simply stopped moving on land, shifting to the sea, and within 3 years, she earned the title Purple Robe Dragon King, and dominated a region of the sea. This also explains a mystery in the martial world. Liuzhou has no sea. The Nangong family had always been dominant in Liuzhou without ever involving in sea-related businesses. Yet why Nangong Shuya would venture into the sea to become the Purple Robe Dragon King? Because she couldn't bear the sight of soil and the raised graves, which were most abundant on land. In Feng Linger's words, her mother had not walked on land for many years, but still came ashore for the sake of her daughter. Nangong Shuya believed she had managed her insanity well, and had no issues since coming ashore, yet to her unexpected, she still had an episode tonight, leading to what happened later. Duan Yun never imagined that behind the identity of the Purple Robe Dragon King lay such a mound of issues and this secret. He couldn't help but marvel at the wonders of the world. Was it Jade Guanin's poison, or that unique skill that caused the Purple Robe Dragon King's intolerance to graves and self-mutilating tendencies? If it were that unique skill, he would indeed want to see it for himself. Clearly, if he were to learn it, he likely wouldn't have these problems, and he might even find the key to cure Lady Nangong. Because he is not only a 1-in-a-million cultivation prodigy, but he is also a newly skilled gynecologist. Guaranteed genuine. Chapter 156. Little sister, I'm here to treat your illness. Duan Yun was very proactive about practicing martial arts, just as he was about performing acts of chivalry. The instant he set his mind, he acted. The next morning, Duan Yun kept glancing over as he ate breakfast. Xin Ying's delicate brows furrowed slightly as she asked, "What now? You want to drift over there again?" Duan Yun replied, "I just want to check on the lady's condition." "Ha! It seems you are truly haunted by someone's mother. I guessed right, you are more obsessed than Murong." After Murong trained with the demon blade, he only targeted his younger sister. "But what about you?" Xin Ying said mockingly. Duan Yun had already stood up, his expression solemn. "I am a doctor, and she is my patient. It's only right for a doctor to care for his patients." With that, he left. Xin Ying sat there, watching his compassionate heart of a medical practitioner recede, her face showing confusion. He really seems to be concerned about the patient. Did I misunderstand him this time? Duan Yun arrived at the western court of Yuzhu Villa. This was his first time coming uninvited to the western court, only to find the gold and jade-decorated courtyard somewhat desolate. This time, with the Purple Robe Dragon King and Feng Linger arriving, there were quite a few beautiful maids around. However, now Duan Yun could only see Feng Linger and the 2 barefoot flower-throwing girls. Upon seeing him, the 2 flower girls respectfully greeted him, while Feng Linger's delicate eyebrows slightly raised, asking, "Why have you come?" Having had a long conversation with Duan Yun the previous night, they had grown much more familiar with each other. Although still harboring resentment towards him for stabbing her in the buttocks, flower fanatic Feng Linger was no longer as agitated as before. She knew, if this man could thrust her mother away, him stabbing her in the buttocks was already him showing mercy. All things considered, this seemingly young man was actually much more formidable than expected. He was probably not inferior to the irresponsible Murong. Duan Yun asked, "Where is the lady?" Feng Linger's beautiful eyes dimmed as she said, "She left." "What?" "I let her go. Her illness should not have come ashore in the first place." At this point, Feng Linger looked towards Duan Yun and said, "What do you want with my mother?" Duan Yun's eyes clear, he said emphatically, "Miss Feng, I am a doctor. Actually, I wanted to treat the lady's illness." Feng Linger shook her head. "My mother's illness cannot be cured by any divine doctor in Zhuzhou. You should not worry about it, but I thank you for your kindness." Duan Yun earnestly explained, "Miss Feng doesn't know. Those divine doctors indeed mostly just bear the title, but I am a once-in-a-million cultivation prodigy. Last night, you mentioned your mother's illness might be due to practicing a unique technique. If I learn that technique and combine it with my extraordinary wisdom and superb medical skills, I might manage to cure her. At this, Feng Linger couldn't help but look at him with a peculiar gaze. You want to learn my mother's cultivation technique? Feng Linger asked. Duan Yun didn't evade, nodding, yes. But my mother's technique is only passed on to her own family. What do you mean? As an outsider, you wanting to learn her technique? Currently, there's only one way, Feng Linger said ambiguously. What way? Become her son-in-law. Suddenly, Feng Linger crossed her arms over her chest, looking at Duan Yun anxiously. What exactly are you trying to do? You hit someone and still intend to possess them? Duan Yun, Miss Feng, you can't even think about it, Feng Linger exclaimed. Besides, I got up late this morning and haven't brushed my teeth yet, so don't have any dirty thoughts. Feng Linger felt that the other party was looking at her lips, so she quickly added. A herd of grass mud horses galloped through her mind. For a moment, Duan Yun felt somewhat hopeless about this world filled with lower-class women. Seeing Duan Yun about to leave, Feng Linger hesitated and then said, Actually, before my mother left, she said that if you need anything, you can go to the sea to find her. Duan Yun thought for a moment and responded, I don't have any plans to go to sea for now. Although he was quite interested in treating diseases and learning that miraculous skill that lets people disco at someone's grave, going to sea and becoming a son-in-law was too big of a price to pay. At that moment, Feng Linger looked at him with a resentful gaze and said, I came here to settle accounts with Murong this time. You better not meddle when the time comes. She had decided to handle this matter on her own after seeing her mother's illness last night, and she was well aware that even with LV and Zhu by her side, she couldn't handle this fellow before her alongside Murong. Thinking about the events of last night, she felt that this surnamed Duan might be even more formidable than Murong. Murong had once boasted to her that his 12 layers of spring rain sword technique had reached the 10th layer at its peak and was enough to astonish deities and make ghosts cry. She had believed in this, but now it seems it might not necessarily be true. Murong liked to boast a lot. Just like knowing Murong was her own brother and then fleeing in panic, she had no more fondness for him, only wanting to chop him, not feeling at ease if she didn't. Her thoughts about Murong had changed a lot. Duan Yun nodded and said, I'm not familiar with your brother. I generally wouldn't interfere with your personal grievances with your brother. But as a doctor, he once asked me to treat you, which I find hard to refuse. Feng Linger exclaimed in surprise. He asked you to treat me? What's wrong with him? As she spoke, the flowers in the room seemed to feel the floral fanatic's anger, trembling. Also, I'm not sick. I don't have any illness at all. Duan Yun looked at her seriously and said, Miss Feng, whether you're sick or not, it's for me as a professional doctor to judge. Feng Linger suddenly became nervous again, covering her chest with one hand while grabbing the red-faced sword with the other, nervously saying, What do you want to do? Duan Yun seriously said, I just want to check your health. Mississippi, don't worry. Just follow me to the cellar, and I'll do my best to treat you. Cellar. As Duan Yun approached step by step, Feng Linger shuddered with fright and yelled, Lu, Zhu, stop him. The moment her words fell, two beautiful figures broke through the wind. Rustle. The barefoot women in green and red dresses arrived, with petals scattering around them, circulating beautifully. The last time petals were scattered, Duan Yun knew that their wrist strength was extraordinary, so he didn't take it lightly. Embrace Sparrow Tail. At the encounter, the Dharma image already manifested behind Duan Yun. Countless jade arms extended behind little Yu, blooming like flowers. Compared to the flower formed by this jade arm, the other flowers in the room paled in an instant. Jade Sword Finger. Dozens of Jade Sword True Chi transformed into bizarre arcs, rushing towards the two barefooted flower-scattering girls. At this moment, Feng Linger had also drawn her sword. The red-faced sword, like a branch of a flower, she thrust forward with a stroke, instantly causing the flowers in the room to spin like a turbine, forming a gorgeous sword chi thrusting at Duan Yun. As it approached Duan Yun, the red-faced sword quivered, morphing into dozens of sword flowers targeting various parts of Duan Yun. Bop, 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 bop. The flowers shattered. These two flower-scattering girls truly had some tricks, pushing with their palms to form two vortexes of palm force, neutralizing the jade sword finger sword energy while continuing like giant waves, poised to counterattack. For a moment, the air inside the room flowed like water, the doors and windows blown open with a snap. Yet at that moment, two muffled groans sounded as both flower-scattering girls clenched their legs together, nearly kneeling. At this time, Duan Yun had already unleashed his tactics, shooting out two cunning flirtatious toe strength. The women, with their palm techniques set, decided to endure the toe strength and simultaneously strike at Duan Yun. For they knew, facing such a formidable opponent, exchanging injuries was the best scenario they could hope for. However, their palm techniques changed in an instant. Not only did they weaken, but their directions altered too. With two booms, the roof and walls were blasted with two handprints. The women groaned, their legs clamped tight, faces flushed red, gnashing their teeth to prevent major leakage. What kind of perverse chi force was this? If not for their staunch wills and profound skills from childhood, they would have been unable to endure earlier. Just then, the red-faced sword was nearly upon Duan Yun. Duan Yun, unmoved, unleashed the breaking body sword energy from within him, colliding with the delicate sword flowers. The sword flowers faltered for an instant. Duan Yun dodged with a flash, and with a casual elbow sword, he struck towards Feng Linger's buttocks. Seeing this sudden burst of sword chi, Feng Linger's heart trembled, hastily lifting her sword to defend. In a sealing motion, the sword chi that hit her buttocks earlier had already become her haunting shadow. With a clang, the sword chi was defended, but Feng Linger had lost sight of Duan Yun. Denying an illness out of fear of treatment is a big taboo. In the meantime, Duan Yun's voice suddenly arose behind her, causing Feng Linger's heart to skip half a beat. Just as she was about to turn back with her sword, the sound of two snaps was heard. Two of her acupoints had been struck, her body instantly softening. Miss! Miss! The two flower-scattering girls attempted to forcefully rescue, but at this moment, two more toe strengths peculiarly attacked. Ah! Ah! As the two clenched their legs even tighter and knelt down, Duan Yun also pressed their acupoints. The two flower-scattering girls slowly collapsed. Don't worry, I said it's just treating your young lady. Saying so, Duan Yun had already scooped up Feng Linger, swiftly heading to the cellar. Miss! Miss! Thus, the two maids could only watch helplessly as their young lady was taken by Duan Yun into the cellar next to the western courtyard. In the dim cellar, Duan Yun's hand was already on Feng Linger's head. Feng Linger, completely numb, unable to move, fearfully said, "What are you going to do to me?" I said, "Treating." "No, don't." Before she could finish, her eyes suddenly went blank. A strange suction entered her body, drawing the true chi from her through her skull, causing Feng Linger's consciousness to blur in an instant. Having had the experience of absorbing from Fu Wanjun before, facing the second junior sister, Duan Yun quickly entered the state. Compared to last time, Duan Yun absorbed more gently and efficiently. Junior sisters are not enemies, cannot rush too much. With the experience of Fu Wanjun and the madness of absorbing from the White Sox sect, Duan Yun's Biming divine skill became even more adept. Now even if he used his belly to absorb from Feng Linger it would work, but he still used his most skilled palms. If there were no issues last time, there definitely wouldn't be this time. Only treating and saving people. How could it be wrong? In just an instant, both Duan Yun and Feng Linger started shivering. Several times in a row, Feng Linger's eyes even began to roll back. And Shining, who had just entered the cellar, happened to witness this bizarre and peculiar scene. Duan Yun let go. Unlike the gradual collapse of Fu Wanjun last time, Feng Linger continued to shiver several times, then crossed her arms over her chest and crouched down. The next moment, a pitiful crying sound emerged. "Woo-woo, you're bullying me." Shining quickly went over, shielding Feng Linger, and questioned Duan Yun. What exactly did you do? Duan Yun, watching Feng Linger crying, also broke into a sweat on his forehead, saying, Junior sister, it's a misunderstanding. I didn't know you weren't ill. Unlike last time with Fu Wanjun, whose cultivation technique had issues, affecting her due to the violent true qi, making her abnormal, Feng Linger's true qi had no issues. At the moment their minds connected, Duan Yun realized she simply wanted to scold and run away from Murong. But because there was actually no issue or violent true qi to resist, this absorption method became particularly sensitive and stimulating for Feng Linger, so in a short period of time, they both shivered together several times. Hearing she had been misdiagnosed, Feng Linger cried even louder. Outside, Zhu and LV heard their young lady's crying sounds, breaking into cold sweats. Could it be that the young lady was already being by him in the cellar? So quickly. Chapter 157. Chicken and Monkey Present Gifts. 16 Strange Fist. The dark and damp crevices of the mountain walls, thick with slippery moss. Here in the depths of an unnamed mountain within the mountain ranges of Yu State, cliff faces occasionally reveal hanging ancient coffins, their age unknown. Some coffins have already become riddled with holes, exposing the blackened skeletons inside, creating a horrifying sight. In this bleak weather, accompanied by the howling winds, this gloomy place could easily be mistaken for a path leading to the netherworld hell, and some believe it to be so. Even the most experienced medicinal herb gatherers would not venture here lightly. Let alone herb gatherers, even the adept climbing monkeys or soaring eagles avoid this place. This area reeks of death energy, casting an ominous sensation. Since no one ventures here, who then has carried these coffins up the steep cliffs? No one knows. These coffins, just like the dark cliffs, are eerie and bizarre, as if ghosts could emerge from them at any moment. At this moment, a patch of moss on the inner walls of the mountain twisted slightly. Upon closer inspection, it appears to be a poisonous snake nearly fused with the moss. The next instant, the snake rapidly darted away, as if startled by something. With a snap, a hole suddenly broke through the wall, and a human hand emerged, seeming as if it had grown from within. This hand precisely grabbed the snake's vital spot, 7 inches behind its head. The snake struggled but could not escape. More of the wall crumbled, and a person emerged from it. This person had a string of bright red tumors on his head, resembling a rooster's comb. It was none other than Ji Sikhen. He yanked and flattened the snake with a pull. Then, in the next moment, bit the snake's head and began to chew, creating crackling noises. The snake's head was eaten, but its body still coiled, filling the air with a scent of blood. The next moment, another figure emerged from that hole. He appeared small, like a child, but upon landing, his body quickly grew to adult size. Monkey Face had also arrived. Seeing Ji Sikhen eating the snake, Monkey Face disdainfully said, "Old chicken, playing with so much blood at this time. Aren't you afraid of provoking the undead?" Ji Sikhen quickly swallowed the snake, licked the elongated snake head, and responded, "Otherwise, would you like to make this whole?" His hands were still emitting white smoke, seemingly from just having made the hole. Monkey Face chuckled and said, "Actually, this kind of thing is best suited for Rat Leader, but alas, he's not here. Since you and I have enjoyed the company of Old Pig's sister, it's only right that we do something for Old Pig." Humph! What laid before the two was a deep cavern. At a glance, the cavern seemed natural, but a closer look revealed traces of human polishing. Both Ji Sikhen and Monkey Face continued walking deeper, their view soon widening dramatically. What they now faced was a cave. In the cave hung decayed yellow talisman papers, and a reddish-brown wooden coffin, its color faded and hung by chains in midair, appearing as if a person were upside down. Upon reaching this spot, both Ji Sikhen and Monkey Face fell silent. Ji Sikhen looked around and whispered softly, "Why do these old folks always like to bury themselves in these kinds of places, as if they really thought they'd ascend to immortality? There are many mountains in Yun and Yu states, and since ancient times, many legends of immortals. However, This cave housing a coffin carried no trace of immortal aura, only that of malevolence. Monkey Face walked slowly toward the coffin and said, Daoist Sun was indeed a practitioner in life, so it's reasonable for him to bury himself like the ancient alchemists and Qi practitioners, but those who buried him clearly didn't regard him as an immortal. The coffin, both suspended and affixed with talismans, might as well contain a demon. Ji Sikhen, recalling Monkey Face's earlier jest, said, This coffin is so peculiar, it wouldn't really reanimate, would it? His eyes scanned around as if expecting something terrifying hidden within the dark depths of the cave. There are many mysterious things in this world. Can we, two brothers, really be scared of a corpse? Are we trying too hard to deal with old Demon Duan by doing this? Ji Sikhen still felt uneasy about the coffin, barely able to hold back his words. By now, Monkey Face had drawn close to the coffin and said, Daoist Sun was quite famous back in his day. 200 years ago, he was known as a Daoist somewhat skilled in martial arts, undefeated across 3 states. His 16 strange fist was also exceptionally famous. This fist technique is genuinely fierce, but also genuinely sinister. Old Demon Duan resisted even my uncle's romantic toy, so naturally, we needed to find him something even more sinister. Ji Sikhen said, What exactly happened to Daoist Sun in the end? Why have you always been reluctant to tell me? Monkey Face chuckled and said, I was worried you wouldn't come to make the tunnel if I told you. Actually, it's nothing major. When he defeated his competitors across the 3 states, he started to go mad, often muttering to himself, Daoist master, I've made it. And what is fake, what is real? Later during a fight, he would either pull out his own fingernails or pierce his flesh with needles. Once, he even burst one of his eyes with a needle, and with a single punch, he severely injured the sect leader of Huangshan Sword Sect, leaving him unable to care for himself. Afterward, Daoist Sun renounced his Daoist vows, returned home, and continued his strange mutterings while practicing his 16 strange fist. 6 months later, his entire family of 16 suddenly stripped naked, cut open their bellies, held their own hearts in their hands, and kneeled together in death. Later, when people investigated, they found that Daoist Sun's family had all committed suicide. It was said that Daoist Sun lived for a while even after extracting his own heart, continuously mumbling strange, 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 before he finally died. You should know that aside from Daoist Sun who learned martial arts, no one else in his family practiced martial arts. However, they were able to open cadavers barehanded. According to the only surviving coachman from the Sun family, the members suddenly understood martial arts overnight. In his words, it was as if the martial arts were akin to a plague that infected everyone in the family suddenly. Afterwards, they all began chattering nonsensically as they dug out their hearts and died. So, this 16 strange fist also used to be called the 16 demonic fist. At this moment, a chilly wind blew, and the chains suspending the coffins shook slightly, as if the person inside was about to come back to life. Chicken Face Ji Sikhen got goosebumps all over and said, How do you know so much? Monkey Face smiled and said, These are documents left by our eldest brother. Otherwise, how could I have possibly found this old Taoist's tomb? Chicken Face was somewhat surprised, but then it made sense to him. Among the 12 star signs, Rat Face was naturally the most formidable and renowned, having once killed 3 of the court's 7 famous constables and escaped unscathed. Even his fellow brothers didn't know how many strange skills Rat Leader truly possessed. And Chicken Face knew a bit about where Rat Leader's strange skills originated. Rat Leader's real name was Chow Yin. The Chow family from Yu State was a mysterious, long-standing family of tomb raiders, and his exceptional skills were mostly learned from various great tombs. His disappearance, they believed, might also be related to tomb raiding. Now, standing in front of the sinister coffin, Chicken Face and Monkey Face were both a bit nervous. Chicken Face couldn't help but speak again. Are we really going to do this to deal with old Demon Duan? Monkey Face grimaced and said, Old Chicken, when you were dealing with your sister-in-law, you almost got on her back and rode, and now you're scared of just opening a coffin for old Pig? You must realize, after old Demon Duan killed our elder sister and old pig, he already formed a feud with us, the 12 star signs. If we don't kill him, who knows, next time he might come for you or me. Now that we've discovered old Demon Duan's fatal weakness for loving strange skills, how can we not seize the opportunity? Hearing this, Chicken Phase clenched his teeth and said, "Open it! That's right, you're crowing like a rooster about to break the dawn. Why fear these taboos? No matter how fierce and sinister this old Taoist was in life, he is but a corpse now." No longer hesitating, the two demons chopped through the iron chains and unhooked the coffin. With a thud, the coffin landed on the ground. Monkey Face pushed, and the old redwood coffin lid was pushed open. A stream of green smoke emerged from the coffin, and the two quickly covered their noses and mouths, retreating backwards. Once the green smoke had dissipated, they approached again. Inside the coffin lay the corpse of the old Taoist. The two momentarily remained still, struck by the fact that in such a damp environment, the corpse had not completely decayed after so many years. He was dressed in a Taoist robe, with only his face and right hand showing bones. But at a glance you could still tell he was incomplete. The hollow right eye, the deformed fingers half missing nails, and the holes pierced through his shoulders, neck, and stomach, all proved the rumors that Taoist Sun would self-mutilate before striking others were not false. As for the lack of severe decomposition in the corpse, Monkey Face wasn't too concerned. The fake white ape corpse he had used to deceive old Demon Duan also hadn't decomposed much. There are ways to prevent corpses from decaying in this world. Digging through the old Taoist's remains, Monkey Face indeed found the 16 Strange Fist Manual. The manual was engraved on a dark green jade scroll, inserted precisely at the position of the old Taoist's heart. Yes, the old Taoist's skeletal remains lacked a heart, and that jade scroll seemed to be his heart. Success! Rat Leader's intelligence was absolutely correct, Monkey Face said, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Looking at that jade scroll, Monkey Face wanted to see what was written for a moment. But he resisted. The world's strange skills often carry great risks. Practicing skills requires a test person, and after all the trouble they went through to find this, naturally, they must gift this grand present to old Demon Duan. I don't believe it. This time old Demon Duan won't go mad and commit suicide. At that moment, Monkey Face even carried Taoist Sun's corpse out of the coffin. Chicken Phase was startled and said, "What are you doing?" To play the part well, if old Demon Duan only sees the jade scroll, he might become suspicious. But if it's accompanied by the corpse, he will naturally believe it, Monkey Face explained. The idea was the same as hiding the secret book in the white ape's belly to deceive many clever people. Unfortunately, the white ape had already been used, so this time the old corpse was needed. Monkey Face carried the old Taoist's remains and said, "Let's go, time to return." Chicken Phase got up and turned back, climbing out of the cave entrance. The thought of Monkey Face carrying that old corpse made his heart uncomfortable. It was as if that old corpse wasn't actually dead and was secretly watching him. Sadly, such a notion was rather absurd. It must be because of the Taiin's environmental influence. Chapter 158. You are the beast old Demon Duan, this time I believe it. Ever since he misdiagnosed Feng Linger, Duan Yun felt unusually guilty. Duan Yun rarely felt guilt, for he always embraced the medical practitioner's compassionate heart in his deeds, as well as acts of justice in acting for heaven. Evil cannot prevail over good. How could he, a man full of heroic spirit and righteousness, feel guilt? Yet, it was indeed the first time he had misdiagnosed as a doctor, sucking true qi from Feng Linger until both of them shivered from cold, him included. He could only blame his overconfidence at that time, thinking that with the experience of treating Fu Wanjun, plus his enhanced Biming divine skill, he could replicate the treatment. Unfortunately, not every younger sibling practiced evil skills by mistake. Feng Linger's cultivation technique was flawless. It was as if he had drawn her true qi and caused her to shiver for no reason. Moreover, her constitution seemed to be quite sensitive. At least much more sensitive than the previous younger sister, Fu Wanjun. Just a little stimulation, and she could no longer take it. One could only say that not all younger sisters could be spoken of in the same breath. Next time, he needed to be more prepared. It was a mistake to rush Feng Linger to the cellar for treatment. Mainly because, as a doctor, the spacious cellar had long been devoid of patience. Finally, when one appeared, he got impatient. It was worth reflecting upon. These last few days, the look in Feng Linger's eyes when she saw him had changed somewhat. From being so angry, she gritted her teeth, wanting to strike back and pierce his butt. It had become filled with resentment. Xiao Ying, whom originally did not like Feng Linger much, now seemed to be on the same side as her, both of them criticizing him together. Family members who would understand. He was criticized by two Shadow for being the same. Although the Shadow girls resented and criticized him, they did reach a consensus on one point, and that was the Murong brothers were the real culprits. If it weren't for the Murong brothers annoying Feng Linger, she wouldn't have bothered Duan Yun, wouldn't have been shot by him in the butt, and wouldn't have been misdiagnosed as a perverted little sister, causing her to cry heartbreakingly after having her true chi drawn. Of course, if none of this had happened, Duan Yun, the doctor, wouldn't have made his first misdiagnosis. Thus, he had decided that when Feng Linger dealt with the Murong brothers again, he would definitely not help him. He was not familiar with the Murong brothers. Now, one could say that Yuzhu Villa was ready for everything, just waiting for the return of the Murong brothers. At night, Duan Yun went to check on his cellar. When he came out, he noticed lights still on in the western courtyard, and even faint sounds of sword practice could be heard. He hadn't expected the younger sister to be so diligent in practicing her swordsmanship. Duan Yun quietly made his way over. This was absolutely not voyeurism. It was concern for the misdiagnosed younger sister. Duan Yun's steps were very light, almost blending into the darkness. Having had previous experience in tracking and observing the goddess catcher, he was quite adept in this regard. Currently, Feng Linger was alone in the courtyard, surrounded by walls covered in blossoms. Even though flowers bloomed profusely, she seemed a bit downcast. In the night, Feng Linger's sword, the red-faced sword, which resembled floral branches, shone brighter than the flowers, particularly eye-catching. Scumbag! Scumbag! For a while, sword chi crisscrossed, and sword flowers blossomed. In front of Feng Linger was a human-shaped iron stake being thrashed by sword chi, covered in sword marks. Duan Yun couldn't help but inwardly sigh. Seems like younger sister still has quite the resentment against the brother. Take that for stabbing my butt. Take that for causing me to shiver. Scumbag. Scumbag. Duan Yun scumbag. Damn. Hearing this, Duan Yun was stunned. I'm the scumbag? Why? We had agreed that the Murong brothers were the real culprits, so why is the resentment shifted onto me? As a doctor, Duan Yun suddenly became alert. This younger sister is truly ill. Seriously ill. Suddenly, Feng Linger looked toward a certain spot in the dark, calling out, "Who's there?" Duan Yun stepped out. Feng Linger, upon seeing his upright figure, trembled all over with fright, her face flushed red. With one hand holding a sword and the other guarding her chest, she exclaimed, "What do you want to do?" Duan Yun earnestly replied, "Junior sister, I think you are ill." Frightened, Feng Linger jumped back 3 steps and said, "Didn't you say you had misdiagnosed?" Duan Yun analyzed seriously. Some illnesses are hidden very deeply. If one isn't careful enough the first time, a misdiagnosis can happen. It seems necessary to conduct a second inspection. Feng Linger's hair stood on end as she shivered. "No, that's not it. Your just now symptoms clearly showed resistance against the doctor, treating the doctor as an enemy. There might even be a problem mentally. Let me have a look." As Duan Yun spoke, he suddenly moved closer. Feng Linger was about to scream in fear when, with a snap, a burst of finger strength shot out. As her body suddenly tensed, 2 more of her acupoints were hit, and she collapsed, once again limp. So, Duan Yun caught her again and took her towards the cellar. At this time, the maids Zhu and LV hurried over. But upon seeing Duan Yun, their legs clamped together, and they dared not approach. Duan-yun politely nodded to the two of them, so they could only watch helplessly as their young lady was taken back into the cellar. Their young lady was going to be. Let's examine more carefully this time. In the dim cellar, a candle was lit. The candlelight reflected off Duan-yun's face, half bright, half dark, in Feng Linger's eyes. She could barely make out the expression on Duan-yun's face. Familiarity breeds ease, junior sister. Don't resist this time. Saying so, Duan-yun extended his right hand. Feng Linger's beautiful eyes were wide open. Not this again. The next moment, Feng Linger's eyes widened. A strange suction force once again withdrawing her true qi. This time, Duan-yun proceeded very slowly and meticulously in his search. Feng Linger's recent symptoms were really similar to those of Fu Wanjun back then, only this illness was even more cunning, having deceived this doctor, making this doctor feel guilty for so long. In the cellar, the candle flickered, and almost simultaneously, Duan-yun and Feng Linger began to shiver from the cold. Several shivers in a row. Duan-yun still hadn't found the illness. Not right. It's still hiding. Duan-yun continued to draw out and search slowly, and so the two of them shivered from the cold again. After dozens of shivers, Duan-yun felt he had empathized with Feng Linger numerous times. He had to confirm one thing: he had misdiagnosed again. Feng Linger was simply resentful for him poking her buttocks and shivering on her, mixed with a young girl's shyness. He even saw in her memories the dream where she woke up from him shivering upon her. In that memory, Feng Linger woke up blushing and gritted her teeth. Scoundrel! Pervert! She even looked quite adorable. Duan-yun looked at Feng Linger, who was still trembling, and could only explain earnestly, Junior sister, this is a misunderstanding again. You have to believe me, he said with sincere eyes. By this time, Feng Linger had already curled up into a ball, pitifully saying, People say you are the freakish old demon Duan, and I never believed them. Woo. I believe now. You are a big pervert. Zhu and LV stood at the cellar entrance, listening to the noise inside, daring not even to breathe out loud. It was too late, their young lady had really been that again. The emotional breakdown seemed even worse than last time. Poor young lady. Zhu timidly said, Should we ask the lady to come back? It had been only a few days since the lady left, and this was already the second time. Who knows if there would be a third, fourth, or countless more times. When Xining rushed to the cellar, all she saw was Duan-yun crouching beside Feng Linger. He was trying to touch her, while Feng Linger, curled up with her arms wrapped around her, shivered and sobbed inconsolably. Beast. Sinful. Chapter 159. Does old demon Duan also want to be invincible with divine fist? Squeak. 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 Woof. Woof. Early in the morning, Duan-yun and Xining were awakened by a burst of noise. Seeing the panda Dabai setting up in the backyard, it looked eager to charge. In front of it, on the wall, was a golden-haired monkey. Little Gray stood by, watching the spectacle. Duan-yun, surprised, said, Is Monkey back? The monkey, seeing him and Xining, also showed a very happy expression. Dabai, it's one of our own, Duan-yun said. Hearing this, Dabai instantly relaxed his vigilance, lay down on the spot, and started eating bamboo shoots. Ever since they went out on a mission, this monkey had disappeared, and they thought it had returned to the forest. But here it was again. This time, the monkey still brought gifts, dozens of walnuts wrapped in a banana leaf. It really seemed like a relative coming to visit. Now, with the addition of Feng Linger, Zhu, LV, Panda Dabai, and now a monkey, even without the Morong brothers, it felt a lot livelier. Just past noon, the monkey grabbed Duan-yun's trouser leg, pointing in a certain direction towards the graveyard. Duan-yun, surprised, said, Don't tell me you've found some treasure again. The little golden snub-nosed monkey seemed to understand his words and nodded furiously. At this point, Xining felt somewhat incredulous, saying, Monkey hasn't shown up for so long. Could it be that it has been finding treasures for us? The monkey continued nodding. This monkey was really going all out to repay a favor? Last time it brought a secret book that caused the Murong brothers to suffer terribly. The past few days Shining went to listen to stories, which were particularly distressing for Duan Yun. That was his PM. Old Demon Duan's bizarre preferences further included playing with people's downfall, disguising himself as a young hero, implanting devil seeds in Dao hearts, torturing Red House fairies and thunder-listening bystanders, and shamelessly confronting Zhu Haimian's wife among other twisted appetites. He had developed a fondness for playing with people's urine. His manipulation of Zhu Haimian's wife, the heroine Shining, had become one of the most popular standalone stories, with the Huangshan heroine's urine-sprinkled golden sword becoming another famous scene after the graveyard bloody battle. This scene was such that the storyteller talked about it 5 or 6 times a day, and people still clamored to hear it. This discussion made Feng Linger tremble with fear. So, this demon is only shivering from cold on her body and hasn't yet exerted his strength? What would happen if he did? Could she endure it? Unknowingly, Duan Yun had become the most fearsome person in her mind. Despite his handsome, pleasant appearance, all he had were perverse tricks. At that time, how many tears and blood had the Huangshan heroine Chan Ying shed before she died? Truly a nightmare for women. Her mother was actually satisfied with such a person? Duan Yun, hearing this, felt his blood pressure soar and said, "What about the time I broke the river mouth to donate gold and aid the disaster, and fought the White Sox sect?" Shan Ying pondered, saying, "The matter of breaking the river mouth to aid in the disaster was briefly mentioned, but more was said about the White Sox sect." Duan Yun excitedly asked, how did the storyteller describe this young hero's battle against the evil sect? At this moment, Duan Yun felt very vulnerable, only wanting to hear something pleasing. Otherwise, he couldn't help but consider breaking the storyteller's legs. Shuning pondered and said, "He said you were so harsh on the White Sox because of love turning into hatred." What? Duan Yun for a moment could hardly believe his own ears. He said old demon Duan actually has a fetish for women's socks, and the socks of the White Sox sect particularly moved you, so you proposed your love to the beautiful elder of the White Sox sect, but she, not intimidated or fearing your demonic pressure, firmly rejected you. As a result, love turned into hatred, and you slaughtered the entire White Sox sect in you state. Shen Ying earnestly recited. Hearing this, Duan Yun kind of wanted to annihilate the storyteller's entire family. Fortunately, Shining stopped him in time, saying to wait until she finished listening to the story. Then they could go break Old Gua's legs. This time, break them both. According to Shin Ying's description, Old Gua's legs had healed considerably since the last time. Since last time, Monkey's romantic toy led old Demon Duan to gain the fondness for playing with urine as a peculiar fetish. What about this time? Surely it can't be another secret book? For a moment, just thinking about it piqued the interest of Duan Yun and Shining, and even Feng Linger wanted to follow and see. However, deterred by Duan Yun's perversions and her own shyness, she did not follow. Duan Yun and Shining set out immediately. This time, the monkey led them to the other side of the graveyard, that is, towards the direction of the abandoned mine. On the way, the two of them and the monkey passed through Yushur town. The storyteller Old Gua was still incessantly narrating. It is said that the golden sword splashed with the urine of the Huangshan heroine is still treasured by old demon Duan. It's his favorite war trophy. The urine on it, he's never had the heart to wipe off, Old Gua asserted with conviction. Old demon Duan wouldn't be sleeping with that sword. Would he? Just sleeping? He likes it so much, maybe secretly, that perverted storyteller, and even more perverted are those listening. Brother, let's handle the important matters first. This time, forget it. I'll listen for 2 more days. After 2 days, I definitely won't stop you. If it wasn't for Shining grabbing Duan Yun around the waist, Old Gua would probably have suffered terribly again this time. Afterwards, Duan Yun, suppressing his anger, followed the monkey towards the direction of the mine. The mine was located to the north of Yushur town, adjacent to the graveyard. From a distance, Duan Yun could already see the various holes on the mountain, looking like wounds on the mountain body, as well as resembling the mouths of monsters, somewhat terrifying. As they approached, they could see the wooden supports used during the mining days. Only the scaffold had long been rotten and covered with green moss-like algae. Following the monkey, they entered one of the mine shafts. Duan Yun and Shening both felt a bit eerie. The wooden frames lying on the ground, some of them looked like human figures. Along the way, they even saw skeletal bones in the cracks of the rocks. Mining is not an easy task, and deaths are common. But in this world, human lives are valued only slightly more than cattle and horses. Compared to jade stone, their deaths are inconsequential. Like Mo sect in Wangchun City, even if they required half a person's ribs each time, as long as the silver is enough, there are plenty of people lining up. The mine had long been abandoned, with no human traces and bones covered in moss buried within. For a moment, Duan Yun even felt this place was more sinister than the graveyard. The graveyard had many corpses, but at least not all died violently. But the dead in this mine either died of exhaustion or were buried alive by mine collapses, and even if they became ghosts, they would be vengeful spirits filled with resentment. Duan Yun couldn't help but recall the ghost stories he heard in Yusher town. One was about a carp in the lake turning into a spirit that devoured people, and the other was about this haunted mine. There were smaller holes within this mine, and walking through them, one always had the illusion of walking through the intestines of some evil creature. At this moment, the monkey stopped and pointed to the side. It was a very regular circular hole, as if it had been drawn with a compass. Shening, who was more experienced, said, "This feels like a robber's hole. Could there be ancient tombs hidden in this mine?" Hearing about ancient tombs, Duan Yun, who aspired to be a tomb raider captain, immediately became spirited. As soon as the monkey squeezed in, he immediately followed. The hole was indeed man-made. Faint traces of excavation could be seen. Although it should be quite old, the whole walls were covered with much moss, yet the robber's hole was still intact, with no signs of collapse. Duan Yun couldn't help but admire the tomb robber's digging technique. Even if he used sword chi to dig this hole, it could not have been so perfectly circular. The person who dug this hole had undoubtedly integrated the skill of digging into their body's instincts, digging a perfect circle each time. The robber's hole was deeper than imagined. In the darkness, it was easy to lose one's sense of direction and even the perception of time. Duan Yun did not know how long he had been crawling. It felt quite long, and he always felt that if he kept going, he might end up in the underworld. Surrounded by darkness, even if he strained his eyes, he could only vaguely make out the shape of a monkey's rear. Behind him, it was pitch black, and he could no longer see the monkey's rear. He felt like he had fallen into a dark ocean, with no knowledge of what surrounded him. At this moment, he discovered that the path ahead was empty, and his entire body was suspended in midair. From below, a series of squeaky monkey calls came. Duan Yun lit a fire stick. Only then did he realize he had indeed arrived at a place resembling an ancient tomb. The tomb wasn't large, at least not to the naked eye. It was only the size of the front yard of Yuzhu Villa. But inside, there were stone beds, stone benches, and stone lamps, as if someone had once lived here. This inevitably reminded him of some ancient hermit's cave dwellings, which probably looked similar. But if it was just a hermit's cave dwelling, there normally wouldn't be a coffin. However, next to the stone bed was indeed a stone sarcophagus. The bed and the sarcophagus lay side by side. One could imagine that the tomb's owner had been prepared, sleeping on the bed while alive, and laying in the sarcophagus when sensing death was near, everything clear and obvious. The place was clearly robbed by tomb robbers. Apart from these immovable stone bed and benches, nothing was left. At this moment, the monkey pointed at the sarcophagus, waving its arms. "Is the item in the sarcophagus?" Duan Yun asked doubtfully. Rationally, if tomb robbers found this place, they would definitely have opened the sarcophagus to take the treasures and leave nothing behind. Shening understood his meaning and said, "I know of a group of tomb robbers who before opening the sarcophagus would light a candle in the southeast corner of the tomb chamber. If the candle goes out during the opening, it signals that opening the sarcophagus is ill-omened, and they would not take the things inside. This practice is called ghost blowing lamp, where if the ghost blows out the lamp, it means you can't take away the items. Duan Yun had also heard of this practice, but from novels in his previous life. If there was still something in the sarcophagus, it suggested that it was something even the tomb robbers dared not touch, indicating an ominous nature. The sarcophagus lid was not tightly sealed, and the skeletal remains inside could be vaguely seen. For a time, the whole tomb chamber became sinister, as if something was secretly peering in. However, Duan Yun quickly decided to open the sarcophagus. Young hero Duan, embodied righteousness, and evil could not suppress the righteous. He had no room for such superstitions. With a clatter, the sarcophagus lid was pried open, exposing the skeletal remains in the firelight. Both Duan Yun and Xin Ying felt uneasy seeing this corpse. It seemed to be the remains of a Taoist, but despite the time, it hadn't completely decomposed, with half of the bones exposed. Those dark eye sockets seemed like they were staring right at you. This person seemed disabled or, to put it another way, had suffered many injuries before death, with gaps everywhere. Most crucially, next to the heart area in the chest, some flesh and blood had not completely decomposed yet, but his heart was missing. Stuck in the heart's place was a jade slip, as if the jade slip was his heart. Secret book. Looking at the characters engraved on it, Duan Yun used the legendary Yuan gold sword to pick out the jade slip. During this time, he and Shun Ying kept an eye on the corpse, afraid of the corpse mutating. Duan Yun had previously passed on transmitting pole skills to the corpse chaser Huang Shi of the Huang family in Yuanling, had personally seen him chasing corpses, and had also heard him talk about the Ren family's corpse mutation. Shen Ying, with her broader experience, naturally had heard of such matters in advance. This corpse was suspicious, and they needed to be cautious. However, from start to finish, the corpse remained peacefully still. Duan Yun picked up the jade slip and looked at it. In the flickering firelight, it boldly read "Unbeatable Boxing." "This is actually a martial arts manual," exclaimed Duan Yun excitedly. As an exceptionally rare cultivation prodigy, he indeed should have some basic knowledge of martial arts. "This martial arts manual is quite boastful," said Shining, a genuine boxing master, unable to resist commenting. Chapter 160. Stealing the old demon's unique skills. Time waits for no one. This mine hides an ancient tomb, within which lies a corpse, a jade scroll of secret techniques stabbed into the corpse's chest. This is indeed a novel event. Even considering the previous incident where a white ape's belly concealed a secret manual, this still feels fresh. Shining always felt something strange about this place, saying, "Let's go." Okay. The two of them, along with a monkey, headed back the way they came. The light from the fire stick had long extinguished, and Duan Yun crawled through the theft tunnel, a manual of strange boxing in his arms, feeling a peculiar sensation. In this absurd world, there are far too many madmen and lunatics obsessed with martial arts, often involving betrayal and murder, all linked to martial arts training. It was as if not betraying or killing while practicing martial arts seemed a waste of effort. Fortunately, he had also learned a few martial arts. Only in the hands of good, sane people like himself did these arts find their best destiny. Thus, he could feel how splendid the unbeatable strange boxing manual he held was, comforting as the warmth of a meddler. As a once-in-a-million cultivation prodigy, young hero Duan never refused any valuable cultivation technique, just as he never denied anyone the chance to reform and become a hero. After Duan Yun and Shining left, in the deepest part of the mine, Zhu Xiang and Chicken slowly revealed their true selves. Monkey Face couldn't help but lament. "To trick old demon Duan, I've indeed exhausted myself." Duan Yun said this monkey worked hard to find them this treasure for so long. But what's the truth? It was Zhu Xiang and Chicken who had struggled the most. To painstakingly dig from Wuming's deep mountains to Daoist Sun's corpse, and then laboriously locate this tomb to move Daoist Sun's corpse. It was all to deceive old demon Duan. Zhu Xiang and Chicken were almost moved to tears by their own diligence. If it weren't for their true brotherhood with the deceased Zhu Xiang, if it weren't for the pleasure they gained from the widows of Zhu family, they wouldn't have upheld such loyalty. However, thinking that old demon Duan would turn into a madman practicing this boxing art, even excavating his heart, they instantly felt all their hardships were worth it. Truly worth it. Monkey Face couldn't help but express, "Now, I just hope old Demon Duan's talent is good enough." "Why?" questioned Chicken. "Only if it's good enough can he master the 16 strange fist powerfully, and then he will suffer a more tragic death. If his talent were as high as Daoist Sun, that would be even better. His friends would die unnatural deaths too." Saying so, Monkey Face showed a sentimental expression, saying, "Pig, I miss you." Chicken's cheeks twitched silent. "I think you miss his other 2 wives out there." But this time, Monkey Face didn't bring up this matter, instead saying, "We really need to see how old Demon Duan practices this time. We might even glimpse the secret of his romantic toy." That romantic toy, which could muddle a person's brain so badly, didn't kill old Demon Duan, but instead perfected his frighteningly remarkable skills, something Monkey Face kept dwelling on. Indeed, the beautiful death of their brother Zhuxiang's like sister-in-law, Chen Ying, was closely related to this skill. They had heard the rumor of Chen Ying wetting the golden sword plenty of times. Midway, they had angrily torn apart a few storytellers because the more tragic Zhuxiang and his sister-in-law died, the more active old Demon Duan became in the future, symbolizing a continuous slap to their 12 star sign's face. But after killing a few storytellers, they stopped. Because damn it, these storytellers, sprouting like bamboo shoots after rain, seemed undying. Kill 2 and 20 more appear. Actually, as old demons of Jianghu, both had already realized that this bloodthirsty group of storytellers was somewhat evil. These people dared say anything about anyone, commenting a few words on everything just like lunatics. It was as if they were born to tell tales, never caring whether you're an influential figure, a murderous fiend, or whether you liked listening or not. These storytellers, in doing all this, have undoubtedly offended many powerful figures from both the good and evil factions in the martial arts world, like such notorious demons as them. Logically, with the influence these figures have, such storytellers should have been extinct by now. Sadly, they have not. They have flourished even more. Both speculated that aside from potentially being backed by various powers as their mouthpieces, the group itself is fundamentally evil. At that moment, Chicken couldn't help but sigh. "Monkey, is Rat Leader really gone?" With his temperament, if he knew of these events, he definitely wouldn't let old Demon Duan live to this day. Thinking of their leader, his entire demeanor changed. Old Demon Duan had engaged in so many evil acts and killed his sister-in-law and Zhuxiang's family. Chicken felt a trace of fear towards him. He felt far too naive when placed next to his own boss. Old Demon Duan was wicked, with many eccentric habits like pretending to be a young hero or deceiving others into fallen ways. However, compared to Rat Leader's cruelty, he was far behind. Between eccentricity and cruelty, he feared Rat Leader's cruelty more. Monkey Face said, "Yes, if Rat Leader were here, several old Demon Duans wouldn't be enough to survive. Whether he is still around is unclear. At least, it is certain he is not within the boundaries of Yun State and Yu State." Indeed, the deaths of big sister-in-law, Zhu brothers, and sister-in-law spread like that, and Rat Leader didn't show up, which can only mean he didn't hear about it. Dead people can't hear, and those too far away won't hear it for the time being. They only hoped it was the latter. Since Rat Leader didn't show up, the vile task of killing old Demon Duan and even cooking and eating him afterward fell once again to Monkey Face and Chicken. Chicken couldn't help saying, "Did you just say you wanted to spy on old Demon Duan's secrets?" "How?" Monkey Face replied, "This time dealing with that dead body, old Chicken, your drilling technique is actually sufficient. Do you want me to drill to that ghost mountain villa?" Chicken raised an eyebrow. "Of course, we'll be lurking underground eavesdropping, plus with my monkey eyes it might just work. You know, once a person starts going mad, no deep secret can remain hidden. Just hope that before old Demon Duan dies, he can still contribute something." Seeing that Chicken hesitated, Monkey Face encouraged him, "Your cultivation technique might not be worse than old Demon Duan's, but don't you want to learn his flowing finger skills?" Saying this, he looked at Chicken, smiling. "You already know that you have found plenty of fun with our sister-in-law. With this skill, it will only be more delightful." Chicken's comb shook slightly. He pondered for a moment, then said, When do we start drilling this hole? Today. We can't wait. Don't let the secrets slip away before old demon Duan practices himself to death. At night, Duan Yun was absorbing moonlight while practicing the sword, and looking through the newly acquired, unbeatable strange fist. This manual had no specific name, just these 4 self-boasting words. Even an old riverside like Shen Ying couldn't track its origin. Before practicing this manual, Feng Linger had exclaimed in surprise, "You dare to practice this manual with unknown origins?" For ordinary Jianghu people, it's important that the origins of martial arts are clear, ideally taught personally by a master. Otherwise, like with unknown liquor, counterfeit or poison liquor could kill. But he had no such worries. Because he was a 1-in-a-million cultivation genius, there was no manual he couldn't master in this world. His past experiences had proved this. At this moment, Feng Linger was still watching him, somewhat anxiously in her eyes. Having gotten used to all this, Shen Ying couldn't help saying, "What? Afraid he'll practice himself to death? Didn't expect you to care so much." Hearing these sarcastic words, Feng Linger turned her head and said, "No, aren't you worried that he will go crazy, use all means to deal with us and kill people?" That day, Feng Linger had listened to stories about old demon Duan in the tea house, becoming his fangirl. Shen Ying pondered, "Your concerns aren't unnecessary, but I'm protected by the 9-death silkworm and have good fist power. If he really harbors ill intentions, together, we should be able to get away unscathed." Feng Linger looked at her with a peculiar gaze. She realized now, whether it's Morong brothers, Shen Ying the fist fighter, or Duan Yun the old demon, everyone here has a mystifying confidence about them. There's not a normal person in this mountain villa. At that moment, she couldn't help asking another question. "Staying with such an old demon? Aren't you afraid?" Shen Ying laughed, revealing shallow dimples, and said, "You don't understand him. Actually, after all is said and done, he's just a newbie misunderstood by the martial world." Newbie. Feng Linger thought about her pierced buttocks and the more than 10 chills he struck on her body. She couldn't associate this man with a martial world newbie. Shaking her head, "I have serious doubts about that." She even suspected that Shen Ying had been enchanted by old demon Duan's demon Dao heart, which would explain such statements. If this martial world newbie is already this twisted, who could withstand him if he grew further? She definitely couldn't. At that moment, suddenly a burst of fist power rang out. Old demon had started practicing.